Chapter 264. You Die, or I Perish Mystic Gang Dominator Body. This was the first time Gu had heard of Yang Jian's physique by name, which made him even more interested in the mysterious shadow. This person must be the great achievement ancient treasure body mentioned by the Immortal seeking Taoist. The illusion was still a world of ice and snow, and the shadow ahead appeared even more terrifying amidst the swirling snowflakes. Yang Jian gritted his teeth and asked, "Who are you, and why do you keep entangling me?" Obviously, he had seen this figure in illusions before. Normally, he would be afraid, but with his master by his side, his courage swelled, leaving him only with anger. The shadow stopped, opened a pair of cold eyes, and their gaze landed on Yang Jian, making his heart tremble. "You and I are both treasure bodies, nurtured by the chief fortune of heaven and earth. Your dominator body is stronger than ordinary treasure bodies, which makes this seat quite fond of you. 1,000,000 years ago, this seat also consumed a mystic gang dominator body, greatly boosting my chi blood, leaving a lingering taste until now," the shadow lamented, as if reminiscing about the past. His words made Yang Jian shudder with fear. Did this guy want to eat him? Guan took a step forward and said, "State your name, and let's see if your reputation has left any mark in this mortal world." The shadow's gaze shifted to Guan, smiling. "This seat is named Impermanence Tian. Have you ever heard of it?" Impermanence Tian? Guan fell in a deep thought, having never heard this name before. Impermanence Tian continued to stare at Yang Jian and said, "This seat will soon descend upon this mortal world. I will put you last. After I consume the other treasure bodies, I will come for you. You have nowhere to run. Even if you escape to outer heaven, this seat will find you. Your only chance is to cultivate diligently and unleash the mysteries of the mystic gang dominator body to become stronger. You die, or I perish." Yang Jian gritted his teeth, though panicked inside. With his master nearby, he didn't want to show fear. He said in a deep voice, "Then come, let me see what you can do." Impermanence Tian laughed out loud, turned, and disappeared into the vast snow. This illusion created by the power of cause and effect shattered along with it. Yang Jian opened his eyes to find his master standing before him. Guan helped him up and said, "He has declared battle upon you, and will likely no longer interfere with you. You can cultivate in peace now." In the illusion realm, Guan couldn't perform lifespan detection on Impermanence Tian, but the power of cause and effect from the other side didn't seem unbeatable, so he remained calm. Yang Jian asked worriedly, "Master, should I leave Medicine Valley so as to—" "Nonsense. Focus on cultivating. If you say such rubbish again, I will cripple your Tao level," Guan said sternly, interrupting him. Yang Jian opened his mouth, but eventually held back what he wanted to say. He had the deepest feeling of Impermanence Tian's power, which he couldn't describe. Though he believed his master wouldn't lose, he didn't want his master hurt or caught in bigger troubles, something he never wished to see. Guan didn't say he could easily handle Impermanence Tian, for he wasn't sure of Impermanence Tian's strength either. It was just an opportunity to apply pressure on Yang Jian, hoping to help him grow faster. He said he would first find other treasure bodies. Those treasure bodies must be guarded by great forces, giving you plenty of time to grow, Guan consoled. Everyone has their calamities and fates. Only by constantly overcoming them can you break the shackles. The path of immortal cultivation is inherently against the heavens. You need a heart that is resilient and fearless of anything. Yang Jian took a deep breath, his expression firming up. "Yes, why think so much? Soldiers come, fight them off. Water comes, build barriers." As long as he cultivated with all his might, even if he died, what regrets would he have? Then he resumed cultivating the limitless freedom step. In the snowy winter, the world became a single color, with Guan and Yang Jian in the forest appearing very small. Days unfolded as Guan had foreseen. Impermanence Tian didn't come for Yang Jian again, and Yang Jian was no longer tormented by illusions. The New Year's festival arrived, and the Supreme Sect remained lively, unaffected by the ocean calamity. This year, the Supreme Sect began preparing for a new convention. After the new year, LV Batian came to discuss with Gu and about the upcoming convention. This time, the Supreme Sect intended to hold a physical cultivation convention where participants would not use spiritual power or Dharma treasures, relying solely on their bodies and techniques. After their discussion, LV Batian started complaining about the subsects. The power of the subsects was growing, and LV Batian could no longer intervene in their matters. This was the decision of the Hall of Elders and the Venerable Pavilion, clearly aimed at weakening his power. To this, Guin simply listened without commenting. There had always been internal strife in Supreme Sect at every stage, and in fact, it's the same for any sect or place. As long as it didn't jeopardize the entirety of Supreme Sect, Guin didn't care. If LV Batian couldn't compete with others within the rules, it was merely a testament to his lack of skill, and nothing more needed to be said. Speaking of subsects, LV Batian brought up the G family. Since Sword Venerable Fudao ventured into the Seven Stars spirit realm, the realm still existed, but it wasn't as dominant as before. Moreover, it had established friendly relations with the Supreme Sect, forcing the G family to rebuild ties with the Supreme Sect. LV Batian remained indifferent to the G family, but Vice-Sect leader Jihan Tian still held a position. Therefore, Jihan Tian arranged for the G family to stay in the subsects, aiding in their construction. The rapid development of the subsects could not disregard the contributions of the G family. Do you remember the third miss of the G family, Ji Xiaoyu? LV Batian suddenly asked. Guin nodded, but LV Batian's next words caused his face to change drastically. Ji Xiaoyu had died within the Seven Stars spirit realm, precisely on the day Sword Venerable Fudao swept through the realm. LV Batian sighed, observing Guin's reaction. Guin displayed a range of emotions from shock and sorrow to anger, finally turning into a somber expression. He fell into silence and began pouring himself a drink. Could it be that this lad liked Ji Xiaoyu? Indeed, Guin's entry into the Supreme Sect was arranged by Ji Xiaoyu, and in terms of appearance, Ji Xiaoyu was undoubtedly a rare beauty. LV Batian thought as he watched Gu and secretly praised himself for his acting skills, capable of conveying emotions that could influence others. The room fell silent. For a long while, LV Batian broke the silence. Old acquaintances have gone. On the path to immortality, you're bound to experience these matters. By the way, there's another matter, quite intriguing actually. What is it? Guin raised his eyes to look at him and asked. LV Batian replied, another girl of heavenly pride has appeared in the Ji family, also named Ji Xiaoyu. If I hadn't seen this girl, I would have thought it was the previous Ji Xiaoyu, but they were born in different branches of the Ji family, and her talent surpasses that of the former Ji Xiaoyu. Curious, Guin asked, both called Ji Xiaoyu and both highly talented. Could it be the same person through possession or reincarnation? LV Batian shook his head. I don't think so. She's named Ji Xiaoyu because she also possesses a primordial Taoist talisman. The Ji family named her in memory of the former Ji Xiaoyu. Judging by the aura of the talisman, it's not the same. A primordial Taoist talisman is formed by the cultivation level of an ancient great cultivator before they died. It seems an immortal once emerged from the Ji family. The Ji family doesn't receive the talisman. Instead, they created the primordial Taoist talisman. LV Batian's tone was filled with emotion, his eyes wandering as if contemplating something. Guin sighed without responding. Seeing his disinterest in further conversation, LV Batian decided not to disturb him any longer and took his leave. After LV Batian left the Third Medicine Valley, Guin revealed a smile. He hummed a tune and began to read. Although Xiantiani was no longer in Supreme Sect, his books were occasionally sent back. Green Hero Travelogue was still being updated. Guin loved authors like this who stayed true to their roots. If Xiantiani wrote for 1,000 years, he would read for 1,000 years. Notably, Green Hero Travelogue was now about overseas lands, which had rapidly boosted its sales. Presently, Supreme Sect disciples increasingly longed for the ocean. Spring faded into summer, bringing another year of splendid scenery. Underneath the mystic pure tree, Guin leaned against its trunk, tenderly stroking the white spirit rat napping beside him. He closed his eyes, appearing to doze, but in fact, he was observing Xiaochuan's life. Xiaochuan had established a family and a career, settled in a city, living a relatively happy life, vastly different from his personality and image in Medicine Valley. He already had the air of a head of the household. Xiaochuan had a son and a daughter, and they'd hired many servants. Seeing that Xiaochuan was doing well, Guin felt at ease. After that, Guin turned his gaze toward the sea-breaking rift. Looking into the distance, the sea-breaking rift stretched long, spanning the ocean. Around the rift, one could always spot cultivators and demons venturing in and out, as well as living spirits or divine exotic resentful ghosts escaping, presenting a magnificent sight. It seemed calm, but this peace felt oppressive, like the onset of a storm. After watching for a while, Guin stood up, sensing someone approaching. Someone rode the clouds swiftly into Medicine Valley. It was Vice Sect leader Jihan Tian, followed by a finely dressed little girl. Guin hurried to greet them, casting a lifespan detection. Ji Xiaoyu, Energy Cultivation Realm 9th Layer 11/240/9999. Goodness, the extreme lifespan reached 9,999 years. The previous Ji Xiaoyu had an extreme lifespan of 8,900 years. Reborn into a new life, her extreme lifespan had increased. Could this be considered reincarnation cultivation? Jihan Tian saw Guin and smiled. When Guin approached, he spoke, "I want you to look after her. She is Ji Xiaoyu, from a branch of the Ji family." Hearing this, Guin feigned a dazed look, gazing at the young Ji Xiaoyu. Ji Xiaoyu was only 11 years old, not yet reaching Ji Hanian's elbow. Her expression was calm, with eyes carrying a hint of age, reminding Guin of the previous Ji Xiaoyu's precocious maturity. Seeing Guin lost in thought, Jihan Tian explained, "She just happens to have this name. LV Baitian should have mentioned it. Let her cultivate in your Medicine Valley, and I will take her away later." Saying so, Jihan Tian turned and swiftly disappeared into the horizon. Guin and Ji Xiaoyu stood on the grass, speechless, a subtle atmosphere prevailing. Just then, a figure appeared in front of Ji Xiaoyu. He squatted down to scrutinize her. It was none other than Nine-Finger Divine Lord. Chapter 265, Supreme Treasure Body. Dream of the previous life, such a foundation, rare. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord looked at Ji Xiaoyu and marveled, clicking his tongue. Ji Xiaoyu slightly frowned, circled past the Nine-Finger Divine Lord, and came to Guin's side, leaning against him, watching the Nine-Finger Divine Lord with vigilance. Guin laughed and said, "Senior, don't scare the child." The Nine-Finger Divine Lord stood up, turned to look at Guin, and sighed. "Guin, this girl has extraordinary talent. You must draw her in while she is still young and build a good relationship. She might save your life in the future." Guin nonchalantly said, "I never leave the Supreme Sect. What danger could I encounter?" "True." The Nine-Finger Divine Lord smiled and took another glance at Ji Xiaoyu before turning and leaving. Guin looked at Ji Xiaoyu and laughed. "I am called Guin. You can call me Valley Master from now on." Ji Xiaoyu gently nodded. Her gaze towards Guin remained calm, as if she really did not remember Guin. This made Guin slightly regretful. In this life, Ji Xiaoyu was ultimately not the same person as in the past. Guin took Ji Xiaoyu's little hand and walked towards the group of pavilions. Ji Xiaoyu's expression was slightly uneasy, but she did not break free. Afterward, Guin arranged for Ji Xiaoyu to live with an Xian, asking an Xian to take care of her. He had his own motives. Ji Xiaoyu would sooner or later soar to great heights. If she formed a deep bond with an Xian, she could become a significant support for an Xian in the future. After all, an Xian was his disciple, and naturally, he would consider her well-being. It wasn't long before Guin's door was knocked on, and a childish voice came from outside. "Valley Master, can I come in?" Guin replied, "Come in." The door was pushed open, and the young Ji Xiaoyu walked in. She wore a white lotus dress, her hair neatly combed, resembling a little celestial maiden who had descended to earth. She came to the table, staring at Guin, and said, "Valley Master, can I live alone?" Despite her childish voice, her tone and manner were mature and steady. "Why?" Guin looked at her, smilingly asking. Ji Xiaoyu replied, "I like living alone, and I don't want to be disturbed while cultivating." Guin thought for a moment, then said, "How about you live downstairs in my pavilion?" The pavilion he resided in had 2 floors. The first floor was for living quarters, and only he could live there. However, he usually stayed in the study on the second floor. Ji Xiaoyu hesitated for a moment, then slightly nodded. Guin kindly smiled. "If you need anything, just let me know. Although my surname is Gu, I was also born into the Ji family." Ji Xiaoyu, curious, asked, "You were born into the Ji family?" "Yes, I used to be a house servant of the Ji family." Guin began to recount his background and how he entered the Supreme Sect. However, he did not mention Ji Xiaoyu's name, only referring to her as the third miss of the family. He wanted to test if Ji Xiaoyu remembered anything. Ji Xiaoyu listened earnestly. When Guin finished speaking, she asked, "Did you investigate who your parents are?" "The house servants of the Ji family are all recorded." Guin was stunned. When he reached the carefree primordial immortal level, he returned to the Ji family to see the past causes and effects and to see what his parents looked like. Unfortunately, he could not see them. He didn't know if it was because too much time had passed or for some other reason, but Guin couldn't see the causes and effects of his childhood. "No, regardless of their identity, if they missed me, they would naturally come looking for me, wouldn't they?" Guin replied. To say he had never fantasized about this lie's parents would be a lie, but having lived 2 lifetimes, he wouldn't be melancholy over it. Though he had no parents in this life, he had them in his last one and had already experienced the joy of family. Ji Xiaoyu moved a chair in front of the table and sat down. Placing her hands on the table, she looked at Guin and said, "It's strange, I have very little emotion towards my parents. The other children in the family have a close relationship with their parents, but every time my mother approaches me, I feel very uncomfortable." She began to share her inner feelings, and Guin listened attentively. In his childhood, Guin also heard from other house servants and slaves about the third Miss' distant relationship with her parents. It often made her mother sad. However, because the third Miss was extraordinarily talented, everyone had to flatter her, including her parents, who didn't dare to fuss too much. Guin guessed that although Ji Xiaoyu had no memories of her past life, her disposition remained. Her spiritual wisdom and mind didn't need to grow. She just needed an adjustment period. Listening to Ji Xiaoyu recount her childhood experiences and inner thoughts, Guin occasionally chimed in and analyzed from an outsider's perspective. Despite the age gap, they enjoyed talking to each other. As they chatted, a smile gradually appeared on Ji Xiaoyu's face, replacing her usual cold demeanor. They talked until evening, when Ji Xiaoyu stood up and said, "It's getting dark. I must go cultivate." Guin nodded, smiling. This little girl was even chattier than in her past life. However, having an occasional chat with a child wasn't bad. Ji Xiaoyu suddenly said, "Valley Master, I don't know why, but the moment I saw you, I felt a sense of familiarity as if I had known you for a long time." Guin replied, "It shows that we are fated. Welcome to my medicine valley." Ji Xiaoyu smiled, then formally bowed to him like a little adult. After she closed the door, Guin picked up the book on the table and continued reading. When night fell, he felt the presence of Ji Xiaoyu downstairs, starting her qi absorption cultivation. He sensed the existence of a primordial Taoist talisman. The primordial Taoist talisman was still filled with incredible power, aiding Ji Xiaoyu in her cultivation. Guin did not continuously observe Ji Xiaoyu, and soon focused back on reading. Blue sea and sky, islands floating in the air, birds flying together, cultivators coming and going. On a floating island, palaces were situated, the interior bright with light, the ground as blue as the sea, glistening with light. and Hao sat cross-legged in the water pool, surrounded by mist, his black hair floating slightly, and a faint light emanated from his body, resembling a fire glow. A figure appeared out of thin air by the poolside, a man in a long robe, with an immortal aura, holding a horsetail whisk, his white hair tied beneath a lotus crown, with 3 flying swords of different shapes floating behind him. Disciple, in the coming period, you must not leave the Star Sea congregations. I will be heading to the sea-breaking rift and do not know when I will return, the man in the long robe said. He had the title of Sage Fuchin, known as Sage Fuchin, and Hao's master in the Star Sea congregations. And Hao opened his eyes, looked at him, and frowned. Why can't I leave? I don't even have divine exotic city. Clearly, he was quite displeased with Leah being restricted. After all, he and Leah came from the Supreme Sect, practically old acquaintances, and seeing an acquaintance suffer, how could he be happy? Sage Fuchin shook his head and said, Your situation is different. Your trouble is greater. There is a divine, exotic, resentful ghost with an ancient treasure body in the sea-breaking rift. It was once a transcendent immortal and could traverse outer heaven, named Impermanence Tion. Impermanence Tion plans to devour all treasure bodies in the world. He will inevitably target you, and his Tao level is stronger than a wandering immortal. Stronger than a wandering immortal. And Hao's face shifted slightly. Although he now understood the levels of the immortal path realm, the highest he could reach was the wandering immortal. Beyond that, it was a sect taboo not to be explored lightly. Sage Fuchin comforted, If you stay within the Star Sea congregations, he can't do anything to you, so do not venture out. Wait until all congregations eliminate the divine, exotic, resentful ghost at the bottom of the sea-breaking rift. And Hao nodded. He wouldn't tempt fate by trying to challenge Impermanence Tion's might. Though he might have great talent in terms of strength on this ocean, he knew he was still very weak, even considered a bottom-tier cultivator. Then, Sage Fuchin gave a few more reminders before leaving. And Hao raised his right hand, a wisp of flame emerging from his palm, condensing into a small sun. The firelight illuminated his face, which remained indifferent. Impermanence Tion, supreme treasure body. Why do I feel like I want to devour you? The summer heat was intense. In the Third Medicine Valley, Guan rode the Blood Prison Great Saint down from the transmission array platform. Today he had gone to Tinya Valley, harvested some medicinal herbs, and spent nearly an hour in the Mystic Valley. Guan looked up and gazed at the distant Mystic Pure Tree. Under the Mystic Pure Tree, Ji Xiaoyu was staring at it, with Li Lingtian standing nearby, saying something. Guan patted the Blood Prison Great Saint, signaling it to head towards the Mystic Pure Tree. Little girl, my swordsmanship is really amazing. Are you sure you don't want to learn? You should learn it. I see you have extraordinary talent and need an ultimate skill to protect yourself. Why don't you answer me? I am the crown prince of the present dynasty. No matter how much Li Lingtian persuaded, Ji Xiaoyu ignored him, making him stomp his feet in frustration. At this moment, Gu An's voice floated over. First, defeat Jin'er with your swordsmanship before you brag. Li Lingtian quickly turned around and awkwardly grinned. Guan dismounted and walked towards Ji Xiaoyu, then said, Don't disturb her, or I'll have Jin'er train you. Li Lingtian's face changed slightly, and he immediately left. When Guan reached Ji Xiaoyu, she was still staring dazedly at the Mystic Pure Tree. Behind them, the banter of the Blood Prison Great Saint and Li Lingtian could be heard, with the Blood Prison Great Saint always managing to irritate Li Lingtian. Guan looked at Ji Xiaoyu, secretly amazed. Had she begun path enlightenment just 1 month after entering the valley? This was too incredible. He did not disturb Ji Xiaoyu, just stood beside her to protect her from being bothered by other disciples. It wasn't until twilight that Ji Xiaoyu finally came back to her senses. Guan guessed it was her Buddhist natural reaction. As night fell, she had to cultivate. Ji Xiaoyu turned and saw Guan, smiling. Valley Master Brother, why are you here? Finished with your work today? Guan rubbed her head and said, I finished long ago. What were you thinking about just now? Ji Xiaoyu called him brother because he arranged it so. Initially, she found it awkward, but she got used to it after half a month. Recalling, Ji Xiaoyu said, I seem to have seen some memories. They belong to me, but I have not experienced them. Oh, what exactly did you see? I saw myself standing in the sky, with many demons and people kneeling before me. As she said this, Ji Xiaoyu's face turned unnatural. She felt like she was dreaming, but she did indeed see it. Chapter 266 Divine Exotic Ghost King. Bitter Sea Buddha, Sect Guan asked, What else did you see? Seeing that Guan did not doubt her, Ji Xiaoyu continued to recount. She saw herself being chased by many people, saw herself diving to the seabed and discovering a palace, and even saw herself flying into the sky to pick stars, among other things. After listening, Guan said, You can come here often if you're free. But Ji Xiaoyu shook her head and said, Forget it. My intuition tells me not to touch those memories. After speaking, Ji Xiaoyu turned and left. Guan watched her back and suddenly felt that her reincarnation was not just for improving her aptitude. Thinking carefully, it's true, the power contained in Ji Xiaoyu's primordial Taoist talisman was so strong that she did not need to improve her aptitude before nirvana. Could there be another hidden reason? And Ji Xiaoyu's soul had been wary of awakening her previous life memories? Guan shook his head, not wanting to think too much. After all, Ji Xiaoyu couldn't stay in the Third Medicine Valley forever. At the end of summer, Guan arrived at Immortal Seeking Island. His divine sense swept around, but the figure of the Immortal Seeking Taoist was nowhere to be seen. Did he really escape? He shook his head, then walked into the streets and began to wander around. This time, he did not call Hu Shaojian. Besides buying seeds, he also wanted to inquire about Impermanence Tion's whereabouts. Now there were battles everywhere on the ocean, even heaven and earth flying immortal conflicts. More and more divine, exotic, resentful ghosts were escaping from the sea-breaking rift, some in groups and some alone. Those divine soul demons, acting alone, were very strong. Guan didn't keep watching the sea-breaking rift, so he came to listen for news. Sure enough, cultivators all over the streets were discussing the sea-breaking rift and the divine, exotic, resentful ghosts. It was said that there were 9 divine, exotic ghost kings in the sea-breaking rift, each having the power to rival a great sect, and some even holding immortal path supreme treasures. The main forces of the Starseed congregations once encountered one divine, exotic ghost king, suffering heavy losses and failing to capture it. The known divine, exotic ghost kings were 3, Impermanence Tion, Defying Jiuyo, and Yin Yang Chaos. All 3 had 3-word names, and each had heaven-shaking abilities. Impermanence Tion stormed into a force comparable to the Starseed congregations, swallowing a great talent alive and leaving leisurely, making a name in battle. Defying Jiuyo created the Jiuyo Sea Fog, wreaking havoc on the ocean, turning all marine life into white bones wherever it passed. Yin Yang Chaos was even scarier, capturing souls and turning them into ghostly soldiers. The 3 divine exotic ghost kings did not fight together. Each could bring disaster to the ocean. There was also good news. It was said that an immortal path supreme treasure appeared in the sea-breaking rift and was seized by a divine monk from the Bitter Sea Buddha sect. Bitter Sea Buddha sect came from a far-off place, not known to the cultivators on Immortal Seeking Island, only that it was very powerful. Guan wandered around for an hour and then began purchasing medicinal herbs. Before he finished his shopping, dark clouds rolled in, covering Immortal Seeking Island and darkening the entire island. Although Guan had detected the crisis on Immortal Seeking Island, he did not panic and calmly continued buying medicinal herbs. When he walked out of the mansion's gate, Immortal Seeking Island was already like night. His gaze turned to the alleyway corner, where a claw emerged from the pitch-black wall, followed by a hideous ghost crawling out. It was entirely black, with blood-red cracks all over its body, resembling the 1,000-foot figure in the previous terrifying sea waves. After landing, it looked around, its face bearing 6 eyes, and soon locked its gaze on Guin. With a thunderous roar, the whole city echoed with a nerve-wracking howl, as if hundreds of thousands of monsters were howling together. The six-eyed, resentful ghost also howled, leaping like lightning and appearing before Gu and in the blink of an eye. Boom! The six-eyed, resentful ghost instantly turned into ghostly mist scattering around. Guin walked toward the steps, and the entire city erupted in battle. Numerous cultivators and demons flew into the sky, countless divine, exotic, resentful ghosts rising like a rain of arrows to chase them. Guin did not receive any lifespan prompt and abandoned the idea of gaining lifespan by capturing divine, exotic, resentful ghosts. Since there was no profit, there was no need to stay long. Guin used the limitless freedom step to leave Immortal Seeking Island. After returning to the Supreme Sect, he leisurely walked into Mystic Valley. In the summer heat, the disciples were all cultivating inside their rooms. Guin went upstairs to rest and only came to the third Medicine Valley in the evening. Now he liked wandering around, seeming very busy but actually doing nothing, just enjoying such a lifestyle. Upon his return, Guin saw the Nine-Finger Divine Lord playing chess with none other than Lu Lingjun's master, the Holy Mother of Western Spirit. Lu Lingjun stood by watching the game, which piqued Guin's interest, and he walked over to join. As he arrived beside Lu Lingjun, he heard the Nine-Finger Divine Lord say with a smile, "Much obliged." The disciples all praised him for his skill. The Holy Mother of Western Spirit was calm. She looked at the Nine-Finger Divine Lord and asked, "May I ask your name, Senior, and what sect you are from?" The Nine-Finger Divine Lord waved his hand, saying, "It's just a game of chess. No need to pry so much. Has the Bitter Sea Buddhist sect not taught you manners?" Upon hearing this, the Holy Mother of Western Spirit's expression changed slightly, but she said no more. She stood up, saluted the Nine-Finger Divine Lord, and then turned to leave. Lu Lingjun did not follow, but looked at Guin beside her, asking curiously, "How did you beat this, Senior?" The Nine-Finger Divine Lord's face turned ashen, and he began to call others to sit down and start another game. Guin replied with a smug smile, "I wanted to interact with you as a mortal, but since you asked, I have to reveal it. I am a chess immortal in the world, using black and white Tai Chi to inquire about the Tao, experiencing worldly tribulations." Lu Lingjun couldn't help but roll her eyes. Beside them, Elder Lu widened his eyes and couldn't help but ask, "Valley Master, are you really a chess immortal?" The other disciples also looked at Guin excitedly. Whether true or not, their expressions made Guin feel very satisfied. "You are teachable," Guin said with a laugh, "just teasing you all. If I were a chess immortal, would I still be here doing chores?" The disciples laughed along, continuously flattering him. Seeing Gu and enjoying the disciples' adulation, Lu Lingjun shook her head and smiled. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord found Gu in very contradictory. Sometimes he was very worldly, sometimes he saw through the mundane. Perhaps it was this contradiction in his character that made his chess moves unpredictable and hard to capture. Afterward, Lu Lingjun pulled Guin away, and they came to a secluded place. "Can you let the girl downstairs come to me? I want to take her as my disciple," Lu Lingjun asked eagerly. Guin, hearing this, shook his head and said, "She is the girl of heavenly pride from the Ji family, only temporarily staying with me. If you want to take her as a disciple, you must ask the vice sect leader." Lu Lingjun pouted and said, "Jihan Tian? He definitely won't agree. He opposed my founding of the Ascension sect before, fearing I would undermine the Supreme Sect." Guin laughed and said, "So what are you doing now?" "I just can't bear to see good talents buried." "So if you can't bear to see good talents from the Supreme Sect being buried, do you want to take all the good talents away? You brat, do you think of me like that?" As they bickered, Lu Lingjun started hitting Guin, who was really afraid of hurting her. Sigh. He suddenly missed the days when Lu Lingjun used to bribe him. Back then, Lu Lingjun's attitude was as good as could be. Women are indeed changeable. Guin suddenly asked, "Your master is from the Bitter Sea Buddhist sect? What kind of sect is that, and where is it?" He was curious because he had also heard this name mentioned today on Immortal Seeking Island. Lu Lingjun replied, "Yes, the Bitter Sea Buddhist sect is very far from the Supreme Sect. Not even Jihan Tian could find in a lifetime. So far away. You won't become a nun at the Bitter Sea Buddhist sect, will you? Don't talk nonsense. Let's not discuss this." Lu Lingjun gave Gu a stern look and then changed the topic, seemingly afraid of offending the Holy Mother of Western Spirit. After chatting for a while, Lu Lingjun left. Gu then walked towards his loft. Upon reaching the loft, Ji Xiaoyu suddenly ran out of the house, saying she had something to tell him. So, they went upstairs together. After sitting down, Guan looked at Ji Xiaoyu sitting opposite and asked, "What's the matter?" Ji Xiaoyu replied, "Wait a moment, Valley Master Brother, read a book first." Seeing her nervousness, Guan found it amusing and didn't press for an answer, instead picking up Investiture of the Gods to read. "Valley Master Brother, why are you reading Investiture of the Gods? They all say you like reading Green Hero Travelogue," Ji Xiaoyu asked curiously. Guan's face changed instantly, and he sternly asked, "Who said that?" "Tang Yu, Peng Chong, Chun Jie, they all said so. Don't listen to their nonsense. Tomorrow will educate them properly. How dare they slander their master?" "Slander? Isn't Green Hero Travelogue a good book?" "Don't ask, just read a book yourself." Guan threw Journey to the West on the table to Ji Xiaoyu, and then focused on reading. An hour later, Ji Xiaoyu put down Journey to the West, let out a sigh of relief, and said, "They finally left. 2 people came to the valley today, making me feel very uncomfortable. One of them even wanted to take me as a disciple, but I refused." Guan sensed that the Holy Mother of Western Spirit and Lu Lingjun had already flown away and was secretly surprised. Ji Xiaoyu, who was only at the 9th layer of the energy cultivation realm, could sense the Holy Mother of Western Spirit's presence. She could even judge when the Holy Mother of Western Spirit left. Extraordinary indeed. Guan asked, "Why did they make you feel uncomfortable? Have you seen them before?" Ji Xiaoyu replied, "No, but when I was in a trance under the Mystic Cure tree, I saw some images of people with similar auras to them, and those people wanted to capture me." Could it be that Ji Xiaoyu was an enemy of the Bitter Sea Buddhist sect in her previous life? It seemed that he needed to pay more attention to the Holy Mother of Western Spirit. If she recognized Ji Xiaoyu, he had to be cautious to avoid implicating the disciples in the valley. "Valley Master Brother, you'd better stay away from them. I feel that nothing good will come from getting close to them," Ji Xiaoyu said seriously. Guan nodded and said, "Don't mention this to anyone else to avoid trouble." Ji Xiaoyu replied, "Don't worry, they'll only tell you. Besides you, I feel that no one else in this world would harm me. It's a strange feeling, but that's truly how I feel." Chapter 267. Stronger Physique. Hearing Ji Xiaoyu's words, Guan couldn't help but feel curious. Why did she have such thoughts? In her past life, before her death, Guan did indeed help her, but that was in the guise of the sword Venerable Fudao. Could it be that Ji Xiaoyu had already seen through his true identity at that time? That was impossible. The 9 extremes yin-yang body could shield against probing and causal deduction. To see through his identity, the other party's cultivation level would have to be far higher than his. Could it be because of Guan's identity? Guan suddenly recalled when they were children, Ji Xiaoyu once spoke up to save him. Thinking carefully, it seemed Ji Xiaoyu had only saved him and not shown such kindness to other house servants, or perhaps she didn't meddle in their affairs. Guan smiled and said, "Since you trust me so much, I must treat you well. As long as you're in Medicine Valley, you can cultivate at ease. No one can harm you." Ji Xiaoyu nodded, then started talking about Journey to the West again. Recently, in addition to her cultivation, she had also begun reading like Gu and becoming more and more fascinated with Journey to the West as she read. The two chatted for an hour before Ji Xiaoyu left. Autumn arrived. Guan returned to Immortal Seeking Island. After the attack by the divine exotic resentful ghosts, the island had become somewhat desolate, but overall it had not declined. The strength of Immortal Seeking Island was still formidable. Without an attack from a divine, exotic, resentful ghost that surpassed the loose, immortal realm, it was difficult to shake the foundation of Immortal Seeking Island. Guan sent a message to Hu Shaojian, who quickly appeared before him. After the salute, Hu Shaojian began recounting the attack on Immortal Seeking Island. When he mentioned the divine, exotic, resentful ghosts, his face was full of fear and dread. Those fellows reformed in less than 5 breaths after being scattered. They were too troublesome. Fortunately, the island master used divine skills to move them all away. Unable to break through, they eventually dispersed. Hu Shaojian shivered as he spoke. Guan comforted him after hearing. "It's okay. It's over now. Don't worry. Immortal Seeking Island has stood here for so many years. It won't be easily destroyed." Just afraid of a divine exotic ghost king descending, Hu Shaojian sighed. What does Immortal Seeking Island have that would attract a divine exotic ghost king? Indeed, the divine exotic ghost king doesn't seek heavenly treasures, only wishing to slaughter the strong and use them for their own purposes. Hu Shaojian nodded, his mood lifting. Afterward, he led Guan to continue their procurement, while also talking about the sea-breaking rift and the divine, exotic, resentful ghost news. Guan listened. Currently, various parts of the ocean were under attack from the divine, exotic, resentful ghosts. Their numbers were increasing, causing the maritime sects to take action. Many sects that Hu Shaojian had never even heard of before displayed their power, astounding him. Deep Sea Spirit Palace, Mortal World Peak, Bitter Sea Buddhist Sect, Purple Pill Palace, Immortal Fall Gorge, Vast Energy Taoist Sect, Time Divine Pavilion. This vast world left Hu Shaojian deeply moved. Guan, however, wasn't much affected. He had previously used his divine sense to probe, and found that this world was on par with the Starseed congregations, with over 100 sects at the same level, demonstrating the world's immense strength. Some sects could already travel to outer heaven, yet they remained here. Perhaps there were unimaginable dangers in outer heaven from mortal spirits. Guan was curious about the power that enveloped the great heavenly spirit land, forbidding beings below the heaven and earth flying immortal realm from leaving. What exactly was it? Was it the constraints of the world, or the work of some higher force? In any case, Guan didn't plan to venture to outer heaven lightly. Since only heaven and earth flying immortals could leave the great heavenly spirit land, he needed to surpass that level by at least 2 major realms before exploring. It would be too frustrating to die out there. When Hu Shaojian mentioned medicinal herbs, Guan's thoughts returned to reality. Compared to the divine, exotic, resentful ghosts, he was more concerned with extending his lifespan. The years flowed on. Since ancient times, the mortal world had been full of hardships, but those who could live long lives were few. Longevity and immortality, that was what Guan cared about most. In the blink of an eye, 5 years passed. Guan's lifespan had already exceeded 28 million years, nearing 30 million years. In these 5 years, the ocean faced endless calamities, and Immortal Seeking Island experienced 2 more attacks. However, the mainland where Supreme Sect resided remained peaceful, unaffected by the ocean's tribulations. In the forest, Guan sat on the back of the blood prison Great Saint, watching with a smile as Yang Jian and Li Lingtian sparred. Though Li Lingtian had reached the 2nd layer of the core formation realm, he was still suppressed by Yang Jian, who appeared to be only in the foundation establishment realm. In reality, Yang Jian had already formed his nascent soul. Even if he suppressed his cultivation to the foundation establishment realm, his physical strength was not something a core formation realm cultivator could withstand. Bang! Li Lingtian crashed into a tree trunk, causing the 1,000-year-old tree to tremble, leaves falling. 10 zhang away, Yang Jian retracted his leg, patting his robe. His sharp aura subsided, and the oppressive feeling he exuded disappeared. Li Lingtian sat on the ground, clutching his chest in pain. The voice of the blood prison Great Saint came. "Li Lingtian, your cultivation results are too weak. Like this, you still dare to call yourself Ling Tian? Hearing this, Ling Tian grew anxious, but with Guin and Yang Jian there, he could only suppress it. Damn it, what kind of monster is this guy? Ling Tian struggled to stand, looking at Yang Jian with fear. Fortunately, it was just a spar. If it were a life-and-death fight, he wouldn't just die, he would die horribly. He felt that over the years, Yang Jian's ferocity had grown, and even someone as fearless as him was terrified, afraid of provoking him. Jianer, you were too heavy-handed. Apologize. Gu An's voice came, and Yang Jian looked at Ling Tian. Noticing his serious internal injuries, he immediately felt guilty and hurried forward. Sorry, I was distracted just now. Yang Jian stood before Ling Tian, his face full of regret. Seeing his expression, Ling Tian didn't feel better. In fact, he felt worse. He forced a smile, saying, "It's fine, I'm just not skilled enough." He suddenly wanted to leave the Third Medicine Valley. He thought staying by Yang Jian would help him learn more, but why did the gap feel like it was widening? He almost forgot what it felt like to win. To be precise, he had never won. Since becoming an adult, he only sparred with Yang Jian and wouldn't bully other disciples in the valley. Guin called them back to the valley, simultaneously scanning the ocean with his divine sense. 5 years had passed, and the seas around the continent had started to show signs of the divine, exotic, resentful ghosts. Though few in number, it was not a good omen. For having once struck down a 1,000-jong-tall figure and dispersed giant waves, he surely left a profound impression on the mysterious existence within the sea-breaking rift. But all these years, no danger had arrived, which was definitely not a stroke of luck. The mysterious entity under the sea-breaking rift must be plotting something. The desire for a breakthrough grew stronger in Gu An's heart. With a cultivation level of the 9th layer of the carefree, primordial immortal realm, he would remain unafraid of calamities. Even if he couldn't win, he could escape. But if he could escape, what about Medicine Valley and those he cared about? Escaping with them all would be inconvenient and could expose his true cultivation level. Damn heavenly Tao, obstructing my pursuit of 100 million years of lifespan. Guin thought to himself, frustrated. The blood prison great saint beneath him couldn't fathom his thoughts. It was busy teasing Ling Tian, making Lingshan's face turn completely red, feeling like exploding. As they approached the valley entrance of the Third Medicine Valley, Guin noticed a figure. He lightly patted the ox's back, signaling the blood prison great saint to speed up. In the end, Ling Tian ran faster, rushing over like a gust of wind. "Sister Yu, why are you here?" Ling Tian asked with a flattering smile. 16-year-old Ji Xiaoyu stood at the valley entrance, tall and slender, dressed in a belted blue dress, with beautiful makeup, her long hair coiled under a purple crown, looking like a fairy in a painting. Even some passing disciples from the valley couldn't help but frequently glance at her. Compared to her past life, she had grown more beautiful and not as cold in temperament. Originally smiling, Ji Xiaoyu's smile faded as soon as Ling Tian appeared, and she took a step to the side. This step made the already hurt Ling Tian feel even worse. When the blood prison great saint got closer, Ji Xiaoyu smiled and said, "Brother Valley Master, are you done?" Guin nodded and asked, "Do you have something to discuss?" "Let's talk inside," Ji Xiaoyu said, heading toward Gu An's pavilion. Ling Tian looked at her back, hesitating to speak. Riding the blood prison great saint, Guin followed her back. Yang Jian also left alone to continue his cultivation. He still wasn't strong enough to contend with Impermanence Tian. Only Ling Tian remained at the valley entrance, looking around, feeling very depressed. You beat up Lousy, and you're all happy and dispersed. On the other hand, Guin led Ji Xiaoyu to the second floor of the pavilion. After sitting down, he stretched lazily and asked, "What's the matter?" Ji Xiaoyu sat down and took the paper and pen beside her, beginning to write. Guin picked up a book, reading while waiting. He pondered whether to enhance his physique and cultivation technique if he broke through early. His mystic holy body was stronger than the treasure body, having upgraded from the 5 elements treasure body to the innate Taoist body, then transformed into the mystic holy body. But the mystic holy body could still improve. After all, the path to becoming stronger was endless. After a long time, Ji Xiaoyu stopped writing. She looked up at Guan and pouted. "Why don't you care at all about what I'm writing?" Guan put down his book and smiled. "Aren't I waiting for you to finish? I've lived 150 years longer than you. It's not easy to get curious so quickly." Ji Xiaoyu pushed the dozen sheets of paper she had written toward Guan. "This is a cultivation technique I comprehended last night. Have a look." Guan picked them up and read them one by one. After he finished, he was astonished and said, "What a marvelous technique. Did you really comprehend this?" This technique was indeed excellent, though not as good as his own. However, within the Supreme Sect, it would definitely be highly valuable, not something an inner sect disciple could buy. Ji Xiaoyu replied, "Yes, sort of. This technique can cleanse the muscles and marrow. You always complain about your poor aptitude. You could try this technique. It doesn't affect your energy absorption skill, so you can cultivate it with peace of mind." Guan raised an eyebrow and asked, "Can I teach it to others?" Ji Xiaoyu furrowed her brows slightly at that. Guan chuckled. "If it's not allowed, then forget it. Thank you very much." Chapter 268. The Catastrophe of the Star Sea Congregations. You can teach it to others too, but whether they can master it is hard to say. This cultivation technique requires a large amount of medicinal herbs to temper the body. I only taught it to you because you happen to have a medicine valley. Ji Xiaoyu spoke. Then she stood up and turned to leave. Just leaving like that? Guan couldn't help but ask. "Got to go cultivate." Ji Xiaoyu replied without turning her head. This time, after walking out of the room, she didn't close the door. Guan smiled to himself, muttering, "Still has the heart of a girl." He didn't mind and put away the cultivation technique Ji Xiaoyu had written. In fact, he had similar cultivation techniques. He had just asked casually just now. The techniques that change one's physique often require a large accumulation of rare and precious items. Having just the method isn't enough. Guan began to scan the entire mortal world with his divine sense, looking for a suitable place to break through. He couldn't imagine how much disturbance the upcoming breakthrough would cause, so he wanted to choose a place far away from living beings. Referring to the commotion caused by his last breakthrough, Guan was troubled. He felt that wherever he chose to break through, it would alarm the surrounding forces and affect living beings. His gaze suddenly fell on the sea-breaking rift, sensing the vast and dense spiritual energy within. How about breaking through inside the sea-breaking rift? This idea grew on him, and Guan felt it might be worth trying. Once I reach a lifespan of 30 million years, I'll go for the breakthrough. In the grand hall, and Hao was meditating in a pool, his brows furrowed, feeling restless. Suddenly, he opened his eyes, his vision filled with blood vessels, and everything around him was shaking violently, causing his mind to become hazy. He vaguely saw a mass of black air rushing into the hall, quickly approaching him. The black air landed by the pool and condensed into a human figure. And Hao wanted to stand up, but found himself unable to. Flame primordial treasure body, although cultivated later, surpasses the innate, remarkable. A voice rang out. If Gu and Yang Jian were here, they would surely recognize it as the voice of Impermanence Tion. And Hao stared intently at Impermanence Tion. Despite being immobile, he showed no trace of fear. The black air surged, revealing Impermanence Tion's handsome yet sinister face. He looked down at Hao with a greedy smile. "Supreme Treasure Body, you two were cultivated later," and Hao said calmly. Impermanence Tion's pupils suddenly contracted. His eyes were filled with meaning as he coldly laughed. "It seems you are not simple. Perfect will consume you, then go after the mystic gang dominator body." And Hao sat in the pool, staring at him without making a sound. "Make sure the Star Sea congregations are ready. I want to see if today's Star Sea congregations still have the might of their former days." Impermanence Tion said this, and then vanished like smoke. And Hao suddenly awoke, gasping for air, his body regaining its senses. He braced himself on the edge of the pool, his face drenched in cold sweat, but his eyes were full of ferocity. Supreme treasure body, what and how muttered softly, his voice like the growl of a beast. 2 years passed by swiftly. Guin returned to the pavilion with freshly picked medicinal herbs. He checked his attribute panel and saw that he was just 100,000 years away from reaching a lifespan of 30 million years. He smiled. Once I reach 30 million years, it'll break through. Guin sat down at his desk, starting to imagine what realm lay beyond carefree, primordial immortal. After a while, a figure walked in briskly, and a fragrance filled Guin's nose, pulling his divine sense back. Xinjiang approached the desk, took out a book, and placed it on the desk with a proud smile. Take a look. Guin immediately picked up the book on the desk and began to read through it. The more he read, the more his brows furrowed. Seeing this, Xinjiang became nervous and asked, "Is it very bad?" This book was a novel, clearly imitating Journey to the West. The protagonist was also a demon, needing to take risks and travel far to find the immortal path's supreme treasure that could fulfill wishes. Objectively, it was pretty good. Guin just felt regretful. Xinjiang had reformed. Guin suddenly felt that he was being unreasonable. When Xinjiang was writing, he found it annoying. Now that she wasn't, he felt regretful. It's pretty good, keep it up. Guin closed the book and returned it to Xinjiang, speaking casually. Xinjiang, seeing his dismissive attitude, clenched the book tightly in her hand. At this moment, the sound of footsteps came. Ji Xiaoyu, dressed in white, walked up. At 18, her temperament was even more outstanding. Her features had fully matured. Her eyes, captivating, and a red thin line on her forehead made her even more stunning. Xinjiang looked back and was also captivated by Ji Xiaoyu's appearance. Although Ji Xiaoyu had been in the Third Medicine Valley for years, the two women had never met. Xinjiang had not come back for many years. Ji Xiaoyu's gaze fell on Xinjiang, appraising her carefully. Suddenly, Xinjiang laughed, turned to Guin, and asked, "Guin, do you not like this kind of book and only like to read the Supreme Secret Records?" Guin's expression changed drastically. He quickly said, "How could that be? I like this kind of book. What Supreme Secret Records? I haven't read those." He shot Xinjiang a meaningful look. Xinjiang immediately placed the book in her hand on the desk, saying, "Then can you read it carefully? I'll quiz you next time." "Of course, I like it a lot. I'll definitely be able to recite it backward," Guin said seriously. Xinjiang gave Guin a look that said, "Smart move," and then left. As she passed Ji Xiaoyu, she nodded with a smile, making Ji Xiaoyu frown. Ji Xiaoyu walked to the desk and softly asked, "Is she threatening you? Tell me, I can help you settle it." At 18, she had already reached the 8th floor of the Foundation Establishment realm. She was very confident in her abilities. Guin laughed and said, "Not at all. I've known her for over 100 years. She just likes to bicker with me. Let's not talk about her. Why are you here?" Ji Xiaoyu looked at Guin and said, "I'm planning to leave for a while. I have some matters to attend to back at the Ji family." "Go ahead. Do you need me to take you to see the vice-sect leader?" "Yes." Ji Xiaoyu nodded, and Guin immediately stood up. He had been to the main city of the sect and knew where Ji Hantian lived. Now he could go anywhere in the Supreme Sect, but he preferred to wander around the Outer Gate City. The disciples of the Outer Gate City were easier to get along with. Inner sect disciples had a bit of a distance, and the disciples of the main city were all filled with arrogance. As a core formation realm disciple, most people in the main city looked at him with a strange gaze. Along the way, Guin and Ji Xiaoyu chatted casually. Although their words were not very frequent, they said whatever came to mind. Even if there was silence, it didn't feel awkward. An hour later, Guin and Ji Xiaoyu arrived at the gate of the Ji mansion. Guin stopped and said, "Go ahead." Ji Xiaoyu nodded and walked toward the gate. Guin turned and left. Ji Xiaoyu stopped and watched him leave, her brows furrowed, lost in thought. Guin could naturally feel her gaze. He didn't dare to look back, fearing she would inquire about the Supreme Secret Records. In this life, Ji Xiaoyu was more suspicious than in his previous life, especially after their relationship grew closer. Whatever she was curious about, she would find a way to understand. After arriving at the intersect city via the transmission array platform from the main city of the sect, Guin suddenly sensed strong battle energy to the south, with an aura surpassing most heaven and earth flying immortal. Near carefree, primordial immortal, but still a bit short. His divine sense quickly probed, his expression becoming peculiar. Why is it him? Guin suddenly thought of something and instantly understood. He didn't stop and continued walking. He walked along the street, looking at the disciples coming and going. Many years had passed, and there were now quite a few demons among the intersect disciples, marking the initial integration of the human race and the demon clan. Guin continuously performed lifespan detection, incidentally checking the disciples' karma along the way. This was his habit and also his enjoyment. Boom! Deafening explosions sounded outside the hall, and Hao was meditating in the pool, his brows furrowed. There were more than a dozen great cultivators standing in the hall, both men and women, each with an extraordinary presence. Qi Bei, who brought in Hao into the Star Sea congregations, and Qi Jiuxiao were also there. How is this guy so strong? Can he really break into the Star Sea congregations? After all, he is the divine exotic ghost king. If he had no true ability, he would have been killed long ago. It's really outrageous, daring to come to our Star Sea congregations to capture someone. Fortunately, the sect hierarch is here. We don't need to worry. Even so, his momentum is a bit exaggerated. Listening to the discussions of the sect's elders, and Hao's face looked grim. He didn't expect Impermanence Tian to be so arrogant, actually daring to forcefully break into the Star Sea congregations. He could feel the pressure from Impermanence Tian growing stronger, indicating that the enemy was getting closer and had already locked onto him. At the same time, outside the palace, the blue sky whipped up a strong wind, stirring the sea of clouds into a massive vortex in the sky. The floating islands below seemed insignificant like specks of dust. The cultivators of each floating island flew out, bringing out their magic artifacts, ready for battle. The doors of Hao's palace opened, and everyone walked out, including Hao. The sect hierarch is here, a female cultivator said excitedly. The other great cultivators breathed a sigh of relief. From the swirling clouds in the sky emerged glimpses of a flag. A streak of light fell from it, swiftly landing at the cliff's edge in front of Hao's palace. As the light dispersed, a man in a wide white robe appeared, draped in flowing clouds, with various jade pendants of different shapes hanging from his belt that swayed in the wind. His broad back exuded an imposing aura. Even though he had his back to Hao and the others, his aura that reached the sky astounded them. Great Ming Tian, the sect hierarch of the Star Sea congregations, heaven and earth flying immortal realm. His countenance was stern, his long beard fluttering, and his eyes carried a fierce light. His long hair was tied under a crown adorned with small flags. He raised his right hand, and one of the flags flew out, quickly enlarging as it landed in his hand. This flag was none other than the Immortal Path's supreme treasure, the Star Sea Primordial Unity Banner. Stars glimmered on the banner, emanating a vast and majestic aura. Star Sea Primordial Unity Banner. It has been a long time. Impermanence Tian's cold laughter filled the air. As his voice echoed, a massive black rift suddenly tore through the sky, stretching hundreds of miles as if the sky had been cleaved by a sword, spectacular yet terrifying. Chapter 269. Waiting for Death? Who said that? All the cultivators in the minor heaven and earth looked towards the black rift hanging on the horizon. Everyone was tense, as if confronting a formidable enemy. These people hid in the deepest part of the Star Sea congregation's minor heaven and earth, and the fact that Impermanence Tian could force his way and prove that many Star Sea congregation's cultivators had already perished at his hands. A figure flew out from the black rift. It was Impermanence Tian. Impermanence Tian was bare-chested, his hair was disheveled, and a giant python coiled around his waist, its body covered in black scales, the snake's head wrapped around his back, emerging from behind his left shoulder to look forward with him, constantly flicking its tongue. His upper body displayed a bizarre black pattern, as if some kind of emblem, making him look even more terrifying. From afar, his gaze locked onto and Hao couldn't help but frown. Impermanence Tion's mouth corner lifted in a fearsome smile. Hurry up and form your formation. Let me see if today's Star Sea Primordial Unity banner is as formidable as it was back then. Impermanence Tion's voice echoed as he swung his palm, unleashing a terrifying gale that ravaged thousands of miles. One floating island after another activated their protective formations, forming circles of light, yet all the islands trembled. Great Ming-Tian stood at the edge of a cliff, holding the Star Sea Primordial Unity banner in one hand, facing the wind. He snorted coldly, raised the Star Sea Primordial Unity banner in his hand, and the black flag soared upward, quickly growing larger, reaching a height of 10,000 feet in the blink of an eye, casting the entire floating island into darkness. Moreover, the small flags on Great Mingxin's headband also soared into the sky, standing alongside the 10,000-foot black flag, rapidly enlarging. There were actually 12 Star Sea Primordial Unity banners. 12 banners. Your capabilities are decent, but this is far from enough. Impermanence Tion sneered, swinging his hand once again. This time, a dreadful blood wind surged out from the black rift behind him like a flood, unstoppable. In an instant, the terrifying blood wind collided with the 12 Star Sea Primordial Unity banners. The 12 10,000-foot banners trembled, countless stars on the flag surfaces burst into light, and the ocean below surged, forming a gigantic hand reaching towards Impermanence Tion. Impermanence Tion stepped forward, his right foot landing with such force that it shattered the oceanic giant hand below. Great Mingxin's brow furrowed, his eyes filled with dread. 8th level of the Heaven and Earth Flying Immortal Realm. Your cultivation level is very high, but it seems you've spent most of your time on improving your cultivation level. Your mana is a bit weak. Impermanence Tion's laughter echoed through the heavens and earth, causing the faces of all Star Sea Congregation's cultivators to change dramatically. Could this divine exotic Ghost King be stronger than their sect hierarch? Defeat me first, then talk. Great Mingxin's voice rang out as he leaped up, spreading his arms and casting spells swiftly. The 12 Star Sea Primordial Unity banners whipped up fierce winds, the flag's surfaces flapping loudly, and countless meteorites flew out, their momentum immense and endless, all crashing towards Impermanence Tion. In a blink, the entire ocean darkened. Countless meteorites covered the sky, some crushing towards Impermanence Tion head-on, others encircling, seemingly forming a formation. Impermanence Tion stepped forward, his momentum dispersing all the incoming meteorites. With each step he took, his presence grew stronger, the strength energy swirling visible around him. His gaze fixed once more on Hao, even sending his voice transmission. Flame Primordial Treasure Body, are you ready to be devoured by me? You better resist. The stronger you are, the happier I will be. The happier I am, the less pain you will endure. Hearing his voice, Hao clenched his fists. Even though Hao was unafraid of Impermanence Tion, he knew he was no match for him. He feared that he might drag the Star Sea Congregations into this. Since he embarked on the path of immortal cultivation, though everyone acknowledged his talent, he always needed assistance from others, just like at the Supreme Sect before and now at the Star Sea Congregations. He felt full of unwillingness. Why wouldn't the heavens give him time? As long as he had 1,000 years. No, just another 500 years. He was confident he could become an immortal, no longer needing anyone's protection, having the best talent, yet needing others' protection. To him, it was such an ironic matter. Boom! A strong wind swept towards Hao, the intense light reflected in his eyes, as the sect hierarch Great Mingtung and Impermanence Tion had already begun their fierce battle, with all kinds of terrifying spells and divine skills shaking the floating island. Impermanence Tion fought without using a Dharma treasure, relying solely on the might of his physical body to combat the spells and divine skills of the Star Sea Primordial Unity Banner, breaking them with sheer power. Qi Jiuxiao looked back at Ahau, saying, "Hurry back, don't come out." Ahau bit his teeth, not turning around. Qi Bei spoke up, "The enemy has already come here. Hiding in the hall is useless for him. Let him watch the battle." He turned his head, glancing at Ahau with the corner of his eye. "Ahau, watch carefully and remember the power of the ancient treasure body. Today, although many disciples died because of you, we don't regret it. We'll wait for you to grow strong. You have the talent to dominate an era, and our Star Sea congregations are willing to assist you along your path." Hearing this, Ahau felt even more guilt. He was willing to repay the Star Sea congregations in the future, but he feared he wouldn't have the chance. At this moment, he thought of his master. Impermanence Tion could break into the Star Sea congregations, invincible. In his understanding, only his master could match him. His master had once swept across the 7 stars spirit realm. Even if unable to kill Impermanence Tion, he could certainly block his assault. But he couldn't summon his master. He didn't have the face to. His master hated trouble, yet he had already troubled his master more than once. And Ahau stared intently at Impermanence Tion, flames igniting on his body. His hair also transformed into flames, his entire being radiating divinity like the deity of the sun. Meanwhile, in another part of the minor heaven and earth of the Star Sea congregations, Leah, clad in black, stood at the edge of a cliff, gazing intently at the heavens, where the sky displayed a myriad of hues, ever-changing. He frowned, mumbling Ahau. The news of Impermanence Tion coming to seize the flame primordial treasure body had spread long ago, and he had heard it too, so he could immediately guess that today's commotion was directed at Ahau. Although he always lost to Ahau, he didn't want Ahau to die. Such a genius as Ahau, if he couldn't grow up, it would be a great pity. At least that was how Leah thought. He could lose, but he couldn't live without a goal to chase. A figure appeared beside Leah. It was Xian Tianyi. Xian Tianyi, seeing Leah still there, sighed in relief and said seriously, "Don't think about helping Ahau. Though your divine exotic city is powerful, you can't yet utilize its full potential. The divine exotic resentful ghost is not only targeting Ahau, but also you." Leah gazed at the horizon and asked, "Senior, how do you think the calamity brought by the divine exotic resentful ghost should be resolved? It's more terrifying than the demon catastrophe we faced on the mainland. Any one ghost king can force through our Star Sea congregations." Xian Tianyi was silent for a moment, then said, "Great powers will intervene. This is not for you and me to worry about. Divine exotic resentful ghost. Divine exotic city." Li Ya's eyes shimmered, making it hard to fathom what he was thinking. He suddenly asked, "Senior Xian, is there still no news of Zhongbu Ku?" Xian Tianyi shook his head, then also looked towards the horizon, his heart equally filled with worry. But what was the use of worrying? This wasn't the mainland. His status as a Mahayana cultivator meant nothing here. Boom, boom, boom. Ocean waves surged to heights of 10,000 feet. Floating islands shattered. The sky filled with thunder and flames. Black holes constantly appeared in all directions, and Starsea congregation's great cultivators continuously arrived to aid Great Mingtian. Great Mingtian held the flags with both hands. His body was covered in blood, still fighting fiercely with Impermanence Tion. Impermanence Tion punched, and Great Mingtian crossed the flags to block, but the overpowering force still sent him retreating hundreds of miles, his hands trembling as he held the Star Sea Primordial Unity banner, bleeding from the palms. The 10 Star Sea Primordial Unity banners in the sky burst into countless lightning bolts, intertwining around Impermanence Tion. "Ha ha! What joy! What joy!" Impermanence Tion laughed wildly, the pain from his physical body only making him more frenzied, even boosting his momentum continuously. The ferocity in his eyes almost became tangible. His gaze once again fixed on the wrathful Ahau, taunting, Be furious, be hopeless. You can only watch as I tear them apart. His laughter echoed across the heavens and earth, drowning out all other noises. And Hao was utterly enraged, wanting to rush up, but the surrounding cultivators stopped him. You going up would only inconvenience the sect hierarch, Qi Jiuxiao said sternly, holding the dragon-slaying spear, the spearhead blocking and Hao's chest. He was secretly shocked. Was his kid's life fire really so intense? And Hao grabbed the dragon-slaying spear with both hands, his gaze fixed on Impermanence Tian, gritting his teeth. But what? If death is coming, let us die first. An old cultivator snorted coldly. Other great cultivators around also spoke harshly, fearless of death. No one blamed Hao, making him feel even worse. Are we really just waiting to die? And Hao's face showed intense unwillingness, anger boiling in his heart, causing the flames on his body to burn more vigorously. Waiting to die? Who said that? A voice reached in Hao's ears, making him instinctively feel irritated. Before he could respond, the surrounding cultivators turned around, as if all were startled. Qi Jiuxiao looked behind Hao, exclaiming in surprise, "Fu, Senior, why are you here?" And Hao's body trembled upon hearing this, the flames on his body rapidly dimming. He turned his head cautiously, seeing a familiar figure walking past him and stopping ahead of him. It was none other than Guan, who had cast the 9 extremes yin-yang body. The dark purple demonic shadow struck the cultivator's eyes. Except Qi Jiuxiao and Qi Bei, others were secretly frightened. Where did this person come from? Why had they not noticed at all? And Hao came back to his senses, hurriedly said, "Master, he is one of the 9 divine exotic ghost kings, possessing the supreme treasure body of Impermanence Tian. Enough. Just an ant? Why bother introducing it to your master?" Guan said, causing all the surrounding faces to change drastically. And Hao was stunned, then relieved, a smile appearing on his face. "An ant? Such arrogant words, and who might you be?" Impermanence Tian's icy voice came, full of killing intent. Clearly, Guan had angered him. Chapter 270 Desperate Impermanence Tian. Impermanence Tian's voice made the entire world feel as if it were in an icy wasteland, and all the cultivators of the Star Sea congregations felt chills down their spines. Guan ignored Impermanence Tian and stepped forward. Under the towering Star Sea primordial unity banner, the blood-soaked great Ming Tian turned his head, eyes full of shock. Who is this person? Impermanence Tian also stopped. Guan's dismissive attitude irritated him, and he roared angrily, suddenly transforming into a blood wind, sweeping toward Guan. In the horrifying blood wind, the head of a sea dragon emerged, giant as a mountain, seemingly capable of swallowing Guan and Hao and the others on the floating island in one bite. Everyone on the island's hearts pounded wildly, not daring to blink. Boom! The moment the blood wind and sea dragon collided with Guan, it dissipated instantly, and Impermanence Tian was shaken still, losing his balance, disbelief on his face. No, Impermanence Tian said, his voice trembling. Before he could finish his words, a hand suddenly pressed on his shoulder, causing the giant python on his body to turn into blood mist with a slap. With that slap, Impermanence Tian's heart jumped fiercely, unprecedented panic engulfing him. He was horrified to find that his mana could not be mobilized, and he had lost his combat strength. No matter where you are, I will find you and crush you to death again. Guan's voice entered Impermanence Tian's ears. As his words fell, his right hand squeezed, directly crushing Impermanence Tian's physical body. Boom! A sudden gale arose, raging across the world, blowing numerous cultivators away into the distance. Guan was not just of higher cultivation. His physique was also stronger. His whole Bodashi power was far beyond that of Impermanence Tian's supreme treasure body. In the instant he crushed Impermanence Tian, Guin could feel the bizarre power belonging to the divine, exotic, resentful ghost quickly retreating from the Starseed congregations. It was this elusive power that continuously helped the divine, exotic, resentful ghost to resurrect. It retreated in a manner beyond the rules, quickly shrinking back into the sea-breaking rift. Guin followed and disappeared from where he was. The small minor heaven and earth fell into silence. Even the wind sounded oppressive. Great Ming Tian floated in the air, a look of astonishment on his face, unable to recover for a long time. If even he was like this, let alone everyone else. Impermanence Tian is dead. Qi Jiuxiao exclaimed excitedly, his hand shaking as he held the dragon-slaying spear. As he opened his mouth, other cultivators began to exclaim, "How is this possible? What has happened? Who was that person?" To easily crush the divine, exotic ghost king, he seemed to come for an how. With such strength, how high must his cultivation level be? His aura completely disappeared. The restrictions and formations of our star sea congregations were like nothing to him. More and more cultivators flew toward Anhao, including the hierarch Great Ming Tian. Great Ming Tian disregarded his own disheveled state. He stared at Anhao and asked, "What is your relationship with that person just now?" Under everyone's gaze, Anhao took a deep breath and said, "To be honest, he was my first master. When I was a child, he saved me from the claws of a demon and taught me immortal cultivation, leading me into the Supreme Sect. He is revered as Sword Venerable Fudao by the Supreme Sect." Sword Venerable Fudao. Everyone's faces changed once again. They had heard of the name Sword Venerable Fudao, a presence that swept through the seven-star spirit realm cave masters. If it was him, then it made sense. But who would have thought, and how had such a significant background? Seeing the prowess of Sword Venerable Fudao today, they realized the destruction of the seven-star spirit realm was not unjust. If Sword Venerable Fudao wanted, it was not just those cave masters who would die, but also the billions of congregants of the seven-star spirit realm. On the other side, Guin had already returned to the Supreme Sect, wandering within the Outer Gate City, pondering the power behind Impermanence Tian. Earlier, when he used lifespan detection on Impermanence Tian, he could only see the cultivation level, 9 layers of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, with the remaining 3 values being 0. The divine exotic resentful ghost, seeming immortal, was not truly so. At least the divine exotic resentful ghost was not. Guin had already slain 2 divine exotic resentful ghosts and could sense the same power within them. If he could cut off the source of this power, these entities would no longer be able to resurrect. He was prepared to go to the sea-breaking rift and thoroughly resolve Impermanence Tian. Guin brought up the attribute panel, looking at his lifespan, feeling a surge of confidence. Although the sea-breaking rift was dangerous, it was not an impassable place. Guin began to anticipate the realm above carefree, primordial immortal. Under the blood-colored firmament, the world dimmed. Seawater continually washed over the wasteland, as if some kind of demon was reaching out its hand. On the wasteland stood a steel, occasionally splashed by waves, which then turned into steam and dissipated. A figure appeared out of thin air in front of the steel, then fell to the ground. It was Impermanence Tian, who lay gasping for breath with terror and panic on his face. "What happened to you?" A cold voice came from within the steel, indistinguishable in gender and emotion. Impermanence Tian struggled to calm himself and gritted his teeth. "I encountered someone. His realm is definitely higher than the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. He also said he would come find me. He wants to kill me." At the thought of what Guin had said, he shivered uncontrollably. He was arrogant to others because he was not only strong, but also seemingly immortal. He felt that man could really find him. How could he not panic? How could he not be afraid? Higher than the heaven and earth flying immortal? The voice inside the steel sounded again, as if in thought. Impermanence Tian stood up, gritting his teeth. "What should I do? That guy will definitely come." At this moment, he was more frantic than Anhao had been. The longer you live, the less you want to die. First, calm down and recover. I will summon the other ghost kings. Then we'll see what he can do to eliminate you under my watchful eye." Upon hearing these words, Impermanence Tion's heart calmed slightly. But just thinking of Gu An's figure made him tremble. The sensation of Gu and pressing his shoulder was so despairing that he couldn't even muster the slightest anger. He only wanted to rid himself of this karma soon. News of Sword Venerable Fudao annihilating Impermanence Tion, the divine exotic ghost king, spread quickly. It was deliberately done by the Star Sea congregations, partly to make people think there was a connection between them and Sword Venerable Fudao, and partly to dampen the spirits of the divine, exotic, resentful ghosts, giving hope to the ocean. Though the calamity caused by the divine, exotic, resentful ghosts was terrifying, there were always powerful beings on the ocean who could resolve it. When Guin arrived at Immortal Seeking Island, it had been only half a month since that battle. The cultivators on the island were all discussing Sword Venerable Fudao. The vast majority of cultivators were unclear about realms above Loose Immortal. It was precisely because they didn't understand that they worshipped Sword Venerable Fudao even more. First annihilating the Seven Stars spirit realm, then the divine exotic ghost king. From their understanding, Sword Venerable Fudao already had the strongest record. Guin didn't expect his fame to spread so fast, feeling secretly pleased as he listened. Because of this, he even stayed an extra ancient hour that day. Returning to Mystic Valley, he was in a very good mood. In these 7 days, he had gathered another batch of medicinal herbs, getting closer to a 30-million-year lifespan, estimating that he would reach it in no more than 3 months, and that was without deliberately harvesting in advance. He wasn't worried about Impermanence Tion making preparations early, as he would break through before heading to the sea-breaking rift. He planned to eliminate Impermanence Tion with an even higher realm. Guin walked into the valley in high spirits. When he encountered disciples, he would chat with them with a smile, allowing them to feel his good mood. Time passed quickly. 2 months flew by. The deeds of Sword Venerable Fudao on the sea eventually reached the Supreme Sect, sparking intense discussions among the disciples. The disciples felt honored yet worried. Why had Sword Venerable Fudao gone to the sea? Guin also heard similar discussions, but he didn't mind. Putting some pressure on the Supreme Sect was a good thing. If any presumptuous individuals tried to probe, he could only accept their unexpected lives. That day at noon, Guin was playing Go with Nine-Finger Divine Lord, surrounded by dozens of disciples and senior cultivators of the Supreme Sect. Nine-Finger Divine Lord's forehead began to sweat. Guin held the Seven Stars mirror, fanning himself. No one recognized that this mirror was the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. The Seven Stars mirror appeared slightly different from before in the Seven Star Spirit Realm, and its power aura was completely suppressed by Gu An's path of returning primordial spirit. Even Nine-Finger Divine Lord's divine sense couldn't detect anything unusual. Standing behind Guin, Yu Ying couldn't help but say, "Stop fanning. It's like a woman playing with a mirror. What is a big man doing with a mirror?" Hearing this, Guin immediately raised the mirror and smoothed his sideburns. Yu Ying was so angry that she wanted to grab him. While the two were fooling around, Nine-Finger Divine Lord felt immense pressure. Having played Go for many years, he still couldn't surpass the mountain that was Guin. Nine-Finger Divine Lord began to be dazed, doubting himself. He had checked Gu An's cultivation level several times and investigated his background secretly. Because he couldn't find out how Guin concealed great cultivation, he could only doubt himself. A figure approached, gently tapping a female disciple on the shoulder. The disciple turned and hurriedly saluted, then gave way. The visitor was Ji Xiaoyu. She wore a white dress, holding a treasure sword, exuding the demeanor of a female sword fairy. She stepped into the crowd, looking at Gu An's playful behavior, and couldn't help but smile slightly. Seeing her arrival, Guin lowered the Seven Stars mirror and greeted, "Xiaoyu, why are you back so soon?" Ji Xiaoyu replied, "I came home to fetch something, so naturally I returned quickly." Guin nodded without asking further questions. He stood up, saying, "Elder, you ponder on it slowly." He pushed away Yu Ying and walked out. Yu Ying, fuming, wanted to kick him, but he skillfully dodged. How could a Foundation Establishment Realm Cultivator compete with a Core Formation Realm Cultivator? Ji Xiaoyu followed Gu An's pace, chatting as they walked. An elder smilingly stroked his beard. "Elder, how do you feel? You seem helpless." He often lost to Nine-Finger Divine Lord, so seeing him defeated today, he was naturally pleased. At the same time, he was secretly amazed, wondering how his Valley Master's Go skill could be so high. No wonder it was the creator of Go. Nine-Finger Divine Lord remained silent, staring intently at the board, continuously analyzing and studying Gu An's strategy. Elsewhere, Guan glanced at Ji Xiaoyu walking beside him and asked, "Do you have something on your mind?" Upon hearing this, Ji Xiaoyu's faint smile disappeared, becoming calm. She said, "I brought back a treasure from my family. It can detect the soul of living beings and can also discern demons. Do you want to see what your soul looks like?" Chapter 271, Primordial Karmic Body, Primordial Chaos, Supreme, Holy Skill. Hearing Ji Xiaoyu's words, Gun was stunned for a moment, then asked, "You came back just for this thing? Want to inspect my soul? Do you think I'm a demon?" Guan felt strange inside, not knowing how to evaluate Ji Xiaoyu's idea. Ji Xiaoyu seemed to understand his expression. She explained, "Of course, it's not just this capability. If a cultivator can glimpse their own soul, they might enhance their comprehension. I don't believe it, so I want to try." Guan waved his hand. Ji Xiaoyu moved closer and whispered, "Just try it. It won't hurt. I'm not afraid of pain, but asking me to inspect my own soul feels invasive. You don't think I'm a demon, right?" "How could that be? Even if you were a demon, it wouldn't matter. After all, still saying you're not." Guan feigned anger and left with a flick of his sleeve. Although he didn't understand the origin of that treasure, Guan decided to stay away, just in case his soul turned out to be something extraordinary. Of course, rationally speaking, there shouldn't be such a powerful treasure. Ji Xiaoyu stood where she was, watching him leave thoughtfully. Back in his room, Guan closed the door and took out a strange book he had just acquired from the Outer Gate City and started reading it. In this life, although Ji Xiaoyu was stubborn, she wasn't the type to pester, so after being refused by Guan, she just went back to her room to cultivate. In the following days, Guan avoided Ji Xiaoyu. As autumn approached, Guan returned from Tianyao Valley, and his lifespan finally broke through to 30 million years today. He walked through the mountains and forests, his divine sense extending to the sea, locking onto the sea-breaking rift. Looking at the entire line of the sea-breaking rift, the number of cultivators and demons gathered around exceeded 10 million, not to mention how many creatures had gathered at the bottom of the rift. Soon, Guan decided where to enter the bottom of the sea-breaking rift. As his right foot took another step, his entire aura suddenly changed, and he directly entered the special state of the carefree primordial immortal. He stepped into the limitless freedom step, quickly leaping out of the continent. After a few steps, he dove into the sea-breaking rift. Upon entering the sea-breaking rift, he felt as if he had entered an abyss. The surroundings were dark, with only the deafening sound of water falling on either side. During his descent, he encountered cultivators, demons, and divine exotic resentful ghosts flying out. Some brushed past him, and some passed directly through his body, none of them noticing his presence. The sea-breaking rift was deeper than Gu and had anticipated, seemingly leading to another world. After descending tens of millions of miles, a dim blue light appeared below, shimmering. He felt a unique aura, like the power of some heaven and earth rule. He passed through this layer of dim blue light, clearly feeling like he had entered another world. The aura of this world felt familiar to him, giving him a sense of being inside divine exotic city. This place also contained many heavens and earths. He flew towards the world with the richest spiritual energy, which was also the most vast, several hundred times the size of the Supreme Sex continent. During his flight, Guin saw many cultivators and demons traversing, the lowest cultivation level being the wandering immortal realm. Only those who had reached the wandering immortal realm could freely traverse these heavens and earths. Creatures with lower cultivation levels needed to use different heavens and earth's teleportation arrays or space rifts for traversal. He also saw the figures of divine, exotic, resentful ghosts wandering in the void, watching the passing creatures and ready to pounce at any moment. Guin did not look much, his right foot stepping out again, arriving at a cliff. The sky here was blood red, with dark clouds and faintly visible outlines of several moons. Guin sat down cross-legged, directly activating the lifespan barrier. The spiritual energy here was incredibly abundant, even denser than the Third Medicine Valley filled with medicinal herbs. No wonder so many cultivators and demons rushed in recklessly. Guin did not immediately break through, instead admiring the scenery in all directions. The vastness of heaven and earth made it hard to see flowers or plants. Tornadoes roamed the mountains in the distance, stirring up many resentful souls that wailed and howled like ghosts. Desolate, bleak, that was Guin's feeling. Hard to imagine what had happened to this land to end up in such a state. If everything in this world were flourishing, what level of spiritual energy could be reached? Guin withdrew his gaze and then called up the attribute panel. Name, Guin, lifespan, 174/30004901. Physique, mystic holy body, cultivation level, 9th layer of carefree primordial immortal realm. Looking at his lifespan, Guin's face showed a smile. He rubbed his hands together as if about to do something big. He decided to enhance his physique first and invest 1,000,000 years of lifespan to see the effect. From the innate Taoist body to mystic holy body, he had spent 520,000 years of lifespan back then. He wondered if 1,000,000 years would be enough for a transformation. Investing lifespan. Rows of prompts continued to pop up, all indicating that his bones were getting stronger. Ultimately, 1,000,000 years were not enough for a successful promotion. Guin felt a bit distressed and changed his mind, deciding to try again. So he began to invest his lifespan year by year, 1,000 years at a time. The prompts came continuously, making his expression increasingly unnatural. Finally, you have comprehended the true meaning of heaven and earth for 10,000 years, subjected your body to the tempering of the true meaning of heaven and earth, and your bones have transformed. Your mystic holy body has upgraded to primordial karmic body. Boom. Heaven and earth spiritual energy suddenly surged toward his body, and a sea of spiritual energy mist appeared on the ground, magnificent and beautiful. Guin's face showed a smile. Breaking through his physique cost 1,670,000 years. Who could bear that cost? Guin hesitated, wondering whether to enhance his cultivation technique. He feared that enhancing both would leave insufficient lifespan to break through his realm. As his realm advanced, the difficulty of breaking through kept increasing. If his next breakthrough consumed as much lifespan as the last time, it would indicate that his power was leaping forward. Reducing the required lifespan would be almost impossible. He could only try to minimize the lifespan consumed in breakthrough without causing the number to multiply. The ground kept shaking, and the spiritual energy in heaven and earth kept sinking, startling countless divine, exotic, resentful ghosts. On the other side of the world, by the sea, Impermanence Tion suddenly stood up, looking around in panic. The beach under his feet trembled, causing the waves to surge, and the sinking of spiritual energy stirred up strong winds. Could it be him? Impermanence Tion gritted his teeth. Although more than 2 months had passed, he had been on edge, fearing that person would come to kill him any moment. The sinking of spiritual energy might be related to the riot of this world's rules, not related to any person. The cold voice from the tablet emerged, and upon hearing it, Impermanence Tion breathed a sigh of relief and sat down again. Impermanence Tion complained, "Realm Master, When will you regain your cultivation level and control the order of the divine exotic realm? More and more cultivators are breaking in. This will cause trouble sooner or later. The voice in the tablet did not answer him. Impermanence Tion waited a while, but he could only close his eyes and continue practicing. On the cliff, within the lifespan barrier, Guin endured the pain of his Bodhi's transformation, feeling conflicted. Back then, it took 700,000 years of lifespan for the 5 elements Taoist skill to transform into heaven and earth primordial skill. Enhancing it again would probably consume at least 2 million years of lifespan. Do it. He should enhance his cultivation technique, since he had already passed heaven and earth primordial skill onto Yang Jian and Hao. As a master, one must hold back something. How could he practice the same level cultivation technique as his disciples? Guin immediately invested 1 million years of lifespan. As expected, it was not successful. He invested another 1 million years of lifespan. Failed. 500,000 years of lifespan. Failed. 200,000 years of lifespan. Heaven and earth primordial skill successfully promoted to primordial chaos supreme holy skill, but the cultivation technique level just reached a slight achievement. 2,700,000 years of lifespan. Guin felt heartache, and not only that, the lifespan barrier consumed lifespan quickly. In this short time, it had already consumed several thousand years of lifespan. If he didn't leave himself 1 million years of lifespan, Guin feared either the lifespan barrier would consume him to death, or he would have to shut it down before the breakthrough ended, exposing himself. Guin had intended to enhance the all things form and energy art, which was crucial for hiding his cultivation level and was a body cultivation method. But now, it seemed to have to be set aside. He thought to himself that after breaking through his cultivation level, he would save 5 million years of lifespan to enhance the all things form and energy art. Guin silently thought about it. The memory of the cultivation technique did not flood into his mind. It seemed the primordial karmic body contained mysterious memories that needed to be passed on first before the cultivation technique memories. He waited patiently. An ancient hour later, his physique completely transformed into the primordial karmic body. The primordial karmic body was extremely powerful, capable of isolating all power of cause and effect, even using the power of cause and effect to harm enemies. Everything was tied to cause and effect. An enemy's cultivation technique and divine skills all had cause and effect. He could peer into the cause and effect of their cultivation technique and divine skills to find weaknesses. If his cultivation level were strong enough, he could even directly destroy their Tao level. The primordial karmic body would also generate the primordial divine eye, containing numerous mysteries he would need time to study. Next was receiving the memory inheritance of primordial chaos, supreme, holy skill. The continuous influx of earth spirit energy into Gu An's body gave him only a few seconds of clear consciousness before he was plunged into the vast memory. Primordial chaos, supreme holy skill contained 5 element attributes, evolving into a chaotic spirit sea, refining stronger mana, origin dharma power. Origin dharma power with a robust and vast power. With the cultivation technique's enhancement, the speed of generating spiritual energy within his body was swift, almost reaching the point of a continuous mana supply. Of course, this would require heaven and earth's spiritual energy and elixirs to match his mana consumption speed. Simultaneously, this cultivation technique included a divine skill, known as the Origin Heaven Capturing Hand. As its name suggested, the Origin Heaven Capturing Hand could capture the sky, act both offensively and defensively, and even had sealing effects. Another ancient hour passed, and Guin slowly opened his eyes. A golden thread appeared between his eyebrows, glowing with a golden rainbow, making him appear illusory. Guin raised his right hand, condensing Origin Dharma power in his palm, transforming his hand into the Origin Heaven Capturing Hand. He could capture the sky, quell the earth, and even massacre all living beings. Guan restrained his urge to strike, dissipating the origin Dharma power in his hand, then called up the attribute panel again. Seeing his rapidly declining lifespan, he instantly became alert. He patted his face with both hands and thought, the next step is the most crucial moment. Breaking through his cultivation level, attempting to surpass the carefree, primordial immortal. Chapter 272. Breaking through the 9th layer of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm. Guan looked at his more than 25 million years of lifespan and began to take deep breaths. Ancestors of Huaxia, please bless me. Guan directly invested 10 million years of lifespan in one go. He had never been so generous before. You cultivated chi absorption for 60,000 years, and with great accomplishment in primordial chaos supreme holy skill, you forcibly attempted a breakthrough to the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm, started the tribulation crossing, but failed to endure the 6 paths of illusion ultimate law tribulation, resulting in failure. You cultivated chi absorption for 120,000 years, and with great accomplishment in primordial chaos supreme holy skill, you forcibly attempted a breakthrough to the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm, started the tribulation crossing, but failed to endure the 6 paths of illusion ultimate law tribulation, resulting in failure. 60,000 years per tribulation crossing. It was still acceptable. After all, the breakthrough to the carefree primordial immortal realm required 50,000 years per tribulation. A higher realm only consumed an additional 10,000 years per attempt, proving that the primordial karmic body and primordial chaos supreme holy skill were indeed exerting their power. Would 10 million years of lifespan bring any surprise? Guan's mind was filled with chaotic thoughts, and endless prompts frantically appeared before his eyes, more than he had ever seen before. Failure. Failure. Still failure. Guan resumed his previous habit of checking the length of the prompt bar, verifying if there were any changes. If not, it meant no success. Eventually, 10 million years of lifespan were wasted. Breaking through physique and cultivation techniques, even in failure, could at least enhance his understanding of spiritual energy and rules. However, when it came to cultivation-level breakthroughs, failure was simply failure. This 10 million years of lifespan was essentially evaporated. Guan looked at his remaining more than 15 million years of lifespan, feeling somewhat panicked. 10 million years of lifespan. He would need to farm for 20 years to achieve that. Guan could only compare it to the ages of those in the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. They need tens of thousands or even more years to break through a small realm. Why should he feel distressed? Invest heavily. Investing heavily would eventually lead to success. This time, he would not use 10 million years again, but invest 5 million years. Guan silently thought, then focused on the cultivation level column and invested his lifespan. Failure prompts continued to flood the screen. In the end, even after spending 5 million years of lifespan, the breakthrough was unsuccessful. Another 5 million years of lifespan. Guan's lifespan suddenly dropped to over 5 million years, making him feel extremely short-lived, as if he might die the next day. Alas, it was hard to transition from extravagance to frugality. Guan sighed inwardly, closing his eyes. Yet even with his eyes shut, he could still see the prompts. Another failure. This time, he evaporated 20 million years of lifespan. This was after enhancing his physique and cultivation techniques. If he had not enhanced them, would he have needed over 30 million years of lifespan to succeed in a breakthrough? Guan gritted his teeth and invested another million years of lifespan. You cultivated chi absorption for 730,000 years, and with great accomplishment in primordial chaos supreme holy skill, you forcibly attempted a breakthrough to the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm, started the tribulation crossing, endured the 6 paths of illusion ultimate law tribulation, succeeded in the tribulation crossing, and your cultivation level broke through to the first layer of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm. You cultivated chi. Absorption for 830,000 years, and your cultivation level broke through to the second layer of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm. You cultivated chi absorption for 930,000 years, and your cultivation level broke through to the third layer of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm. You cultivated chi absorption for 1,000,000 years, and your cultivation level increased. He finally succeeded. Before the breakthrough, the recovery time after failing the tribulation crossing was shortened, which was somewhat peculiar. Guan let out a sigh of relief, a smile appearing on his face. After 21 million years of lifespan, he finally succeeded in the breakthrough. 10,000 years per small realm. Guan felt it was somewhat small. He continued to invest his lifespan, raising his realm to the 9th layer of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm in one go, consuming another 1,030,000 years of lifespan. Reaching the 5th layer of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm required 20,000 years for a breakthrough. And from the 8th layer to the 9th layer, it took 30,000 years of lifespan. 22,030,000 years. Guan wanted to see how many years it would take for a real divine immortal of wondrous Dharma to break through a small realm in reality. If it was less than his, he could accept it, as the cost of lifespan evolution exceeded reality. But couldn't be much less, or he would find it hard to accept. However, he did not want to deal with divine immortals of wondrous Dharma for now. He was not even 200 years old and did not want to interact with those tens of thousands or even millions of years old monsters. There was a generation gap. As he thought, he endured the violent surge of Earth's spirit energy flowing into his body. This disturbance far exceeded the one caused by the enhancement of physique and cultivation techniques, and the whole heaven and earth was trembling. Endless divine, exotic, resentful ghosts flew out, covering the sky and earth, fleeing everywhere, wailing everywhere, making even Guan feel annoyed. But for the sake of the breakthrough, he could only wait in peace. This disturbance began to radiate to other heavens and earths, as every piece of heaven and earth was connected by rules of power. In a small piece of heaven and earth, a figure flew out from the mountains and forests. This was a woman in a purple dress with a small ghost lying on her shoulder, precisely the second cave master of the 7-star spirit realm. She frowned tightly, her divine sense spreading, covering the whole minor heaven and earth, failing to find the cause of the calamity. Mother, earlier the spiritual energy sank in the sea. Why is it happening in the divine exotic realm? Is it man-made or some kind of omen? The small ghost asked cautiously, scanning the surroundings in fear as if some terrible power in the darkness had set its sights on him. After a long time, the second cave master finally spoke. I'm not sure either, but it is not just the spiritual energy of this heaven and earth that is sinking. It is happening in other heavens and earths as well. This indicates that this anomaly is not directed at us. The small ghost continued. I heard that divine, strange, ghost king heaven unpredictable was crushed by sword venerable Fu Dao. Mother, do you think sword venerable Fu Dao infiltrated here? The second cave master's face changed slightly and immediately disappeared from the spot. By the seaside, heaven unpredictable stood before a stele, trembling all over with nervousness. He turned his head toward the stone tablet and asked through gritted teeth, Realm Master, is it really all right? As his words fell, phantom figures appeared out of thin air around the stele, each exuding an aura no weaker than heaven unpredictable. There were 8 figures in total. The 9 divine exotic ghost kings gathered. Each of their faces was incredibly solemn. A woman with a human head and a snake body spoke up. Realm Master, the spiritual energy of all heavens and earths is sinking. Unknown forces are siphoning it off. It is impossible to trace. Her enchanting face frowned, and her eyes were filled with fierce hostility. Other divine, exotic ghost kings started speaking, all expressing unease. Is it possible that it is the transcendental beings from the Bitter Sea Buddhist sect? The Bitter Sea Buddhist sect is manageable, but I fear it might be the doing of the Immortal Path Holy Court. That cannot be, except for those who have transcended the rules of the heavens, who could cause such a commotion. What should we do if they do not follow the rules? Let's wait for the Realm Master's instruction. He surely knows more than we do. The divine, exotic ghost kings debated and then all looked at the steel. Blood began to seep out of the steel's surface, and a pale hand reached out from within, its nails sharp like a ghost's claws. Soon after, a head emerged, sparse white hair hanging down. It was a naked man with black runes crawling all over his bloodless body, squirming like fiendish worms, making one's skin crawl. The master of divine, exotic realm. As soon as he appeared, all 9 divine, exotic ghost kings knelt halfway down, bowing to him. The master of divine, exotic realm landed, and black armor covered his body, looking like a myriad of snake scales tightly packed together, even forming a dark red crown with 2 dragon souls writhing within, seemingly trying to escape their confinement. He opened his eyes, and there were no pupils, only a blood-red color. All of you sit down. I will carefully investigate. The master of divine exotic realm said, his tone indifferent. Upon hearing his words, the divine exotic ghost kings sighed in relief and sat down one after another. As soon as they sat, they felt a terrifying divine sense sweep past their ghost bodies, alarming them. Could it be that the realm master had restored his cultivation? Each of them was at the 9th layer of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, with 1 foot in the carefree primordial immortal realm. Yet, in front of the divine sense of the master of divine exotic realm, they felt themselves weak and insignificant. Elsewhere, within the lifespan barrier, Guin opened his eyes and looked toward the skyline, puzzled. Despite the barrier of lifespan, he still sensed the divine sense of a carefree, primordial immortal sweeping over the entire heaven and earth. That person was not an ordinary carefree primordial immortal. No wonder so many sects could not do anything about the sea-breaking rift. Achieving the heaven and earth flying immortal realm meant going beyond heaven. How much more so for a carefree primordial immortal? At least until today, Guin had not encountered a true carefree primordial immortal. Guin calmed down, waiting for his breakthrough. Endless spiritual energy surged into his body as the mental method of primordial chaos, supreme, holy skill started to operate, continuously impacting higher realms. He could clearly feel his soul undergoing transformation. What was a divine immortal of wondrous dharma? Guin was filled with anticipation. The cliff beneath his feet trembled violently, even beginning to crack. He was not, however, worried. At worst, he would fall. After all, the lifespan barrier followed him. In the meantime, countless divine, exotic, resentful ghosts flew around, seemingly patrolling the heaven and earth, occasionally passing over his head. He really feared a divine, exotic, resentful ghost might break in. If discovered by that carefree, primordial immortal, it would be disastrous. In that case, Guin could only kill the intruder. But Guin always suspected that the other party might have a background. The sea-breaking rift affected countless sea regions and sects, some of which even had array restrictions to prevent carefree, primordial immortals peeping. Even so far only heaven and earth flying immortals had stepped forward to fight the divine, exotic, resentful ghosts of the sea-breaking rift, which spoke volumes. Perhaps there was some force in the dark balancing the carefree, primordial immortals, preventing them from interfering. Guin pondered as he awaited breakthrough success. Time ticked by slowly. After nearly an ancient hour, he finally succeeded. From the 9th layer of the carefree, immortal realm to the 1st layer of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm. The surge of spiritual energy into his body soared, and his soul instantly leapt out of his flesh. The abundant spiritual energy tempered his body, while the power of heaven and earth rules within the energy converged on his soul, putting it in a wondrous state of creation. The spiritual in the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma referred to the soul. An uninterrupted stream of created memories flooded into Gu An's mind, giving him the feeling of swimming in a vast ocean. It was an ocean formed by the power of heaven and earth rules. Creation, true meaning. Gu had immersed himself deeply, unable to escape, only feeling his soul was about to break free and be reborn. His divine sense was transforming as well, witnessing too many illusions. Chapter 273, Please Forgive Me, Senior. Guin saw visions of all manner of life, witnessing infants being born, witnessing common folk marrying and starting families, watching demon creatures kill for survival, and seeing people weeping in front of altars, and so on. There were joys, and there were sorrows. It was as if he were observing the lives of all beings, countless images passing before his eyes, an overwhelming sea of scenes that would drive an ordinary immortal to insanity. Guin was different. He was undergoing a transformation into a divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. At first, he felt some discomfort, but gradually he adapted, even beginning to catch glimpses of destiny within the endless visions. The divine immortal of wondrous Dharma could perceive destiny, and destiny could form fate, which meant the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma could see the fate of most beings. Destiny was based on cause and effect, yet it independently formed rules. A person's life intersected with their surrounding environment. Different choices created different life paths. Choices were cause and effect, and the paths they formed were destiny. However, unlike cause and effect, destiny also involved factors beyond cause and effect, such as natural disasters. Destiny was based on the rules of heaven and earth, the choices of cause and effect in a person's life. Heaven and earth flying immortal and carefree, primordial immortal delved into the way of cause and effect, while divine immortal of wondrous Dharma studied the Tao of destiny, observing the fate of all beings, comprehending the true essence of destiny. Gu An's consciousness immersed itself in this, his soul constantly transforming, his cultivation level continuously increasing. Divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm, second layer. Third layer. Fourth layer. The cliff beneath Guin collapsed, and he fell along with it, disappearing into the swirling dust. Under the blood-colored sky, the figures of divine, exotic, resentful ghosts flitted by, thunderclouds roiling, and in the clouds, faintly visible, were the massive forms of evil ghosts as large as mountain ranges. After a full 2 ancient hours, the area finally calmed down, but the spiritual energy between heaven and earth had also become thin. By the sea, the 9 divine exotic ghost kings around the steel all breathed a sigh of relief. The anomalies were finally over, and during this process, they had not encountered any attacks. Perhaps it was truly a disturbance in the rules of heaven and earth, rather than an attack from a strong enemy. The master of divine exotic realm meditated in midair, eyes closed, brow furrowed. His divine sense continually scanned the various parts of the divine exotic realm, inspecting every inch of land, but he could not detect any anomalies, and even he, the realm master, did not know where the spiritual energy had descended. This made him very uneasy, feeling he was losing control over the divine exotic realm. Even if it was just a disturbance in the rules of heaven and earth, there must be a reason behind it, and he did not know what it was. He slowly opened his eyes, his gaze falling on the 9 divine exotic ghost kings below, his eyes flickering. Could it be that these fellows had offended someone, and the other party was warning him? Amidst the vast dust, Guin sat cross-legged on the ground. The lifespan barrier did not isolate the dust, but the dust could not approach him. His entire being emitted 7-colored radiance, and the golden pattern on his forehead shone with golden light, like an eye floating before his forehead. His cultivation had already reached the 9th layer of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm. The reason he did not open his eyes was because he was carefully comprehending the mysteries of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. His soul had already transformed into the immortal soul of wondrous Dharma. As long as the soul existed, the physical body could perish and still be restored. This was the powerful aspect of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. However, the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma still had a heavenly destiny, meaning its lifespan had limits, something he could clearly sense through his insights into the Tao of Destiny. After a long time, he slowly opened his eyes, and the golden pattern on his forehead flickered, then absorbed the illusory primordial divine I into the golden pattern. This golden pattern made him appear more divine. He could not yet absorb it into his body unless he used a spell to conceal it. After some thought, he decided to leave it as it was. After all, with the all things form and energy art, no one would be able to see through his primordial divine eye. Gulen called up the attribute panel, and his lifespan was only a little more than 2,200,000 years left. The lifespan barrier consumed too much. Gulen took a deep breath, stood up, and turned his head to look. He had already spotted impermanence Tian, so he immediately used the 9 extremes yin-yang body, transforming into a dark purple shadow. He canceled the lifespan barrier. With one step, he appeared behind impermanence Tian. At this moment, impermanence Tian was still discussing the recent anomalies with the other divine exotic ghost kings, when the ghost kings in front of him suddenly widened their eyes. He had just noticed this, and a hand fell upon his shoulder. Smack! This slap sent his heart plummeting into an abyss, an unstoppable feeling of terror surging through him. The other 8 divine exotic ghost kings immediately jumped aside, keeping their distance from Gulen. The master of divine exotic realm also looked at Gulen, frowning, his divine sense unable to penetrate the 9 extremes yin-yang body, increasing his wariness of Gu into the peak. Gulen cast a lifespan detection at the master of divine exotic realm, only able to see his realm. Carefree immortal realm, 5th layer. This realm was already very strong. Before breaking through, Gulen matched against him would have only a 90% chance of instant kill, very dangerous. Fortunately, he had broken through. Gulen secretly rejoiced, his peripheral vision glancing at the nearby steel. All divine soul demons had connections of cause and effect with this steel. Their power would converge within it. Who are you? What do you want? A divine exotic ghost king asked in a deep voice, his tone tense. Gulen appeared too suddenly. They had no prior notice, and they could not see through Gulen's cultivation level. So how could they not be afraid? The most important thing was that Gulen seemed to be looking at the divine exotic life tablet. Gulen did not answer him, instead opening his mouth to ask, "Extract impermanence Tian's power, or you will all be utterly annihilated together." As soon as these words were spoken, the faces of the divine exotic ghost kings changed drastically, looking at him with expressions full of shock and anger. But no one dared to refute, much less make a move. They could only turn their gazes to the master of divine exotic realm. Impermanence Tian trembled all over, unable to speak, only looking up at the master of divine exotic realm with pleading eyes. The master of divine exotic realm's face was grim, staring intently at Gu and was not in a hurry, waiting for him to make a decision, letting impermanence Tian feel the despair. This guy had oppressed 2 of Gu's disciples so greatly before. Killing him directly would be too easy on him. After reaching the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm, Gulen became more certain there was a transcendent presence behind the master of divine exotic realm, as the steel contained the aura of several carefree primordial immortals, suggesting there might be a faction behind the master of divine exotic realm. For now, he did not want to alert this presence unless the divine exotic resentful ghosts threatened the continent where the supreme sect resided. Moreover, within this land, he had sensed a familiar aura, so he could not simply destroy the steel. The master of divine exotic realm took a deep breath, raised his right hand, and made a grabbing motion toward the divine exotic life tablet from afar. A soul flew out. Unexpectedly, it was the soul of impermanence Tian, but this soul was curled up, lifeless like a soul shell. Impermanence Tion's eyes were filled with despair and even a hint of resentment, not toward Guin, but toward the master of divine exotic realm. If he could speak now, he would certainly curse the master of divine exotic realm. The other divine exotic ghost kings could understand the look in his eyes, feeling equally distressed, sharing the feeling of the death of a kindred spirit. Guin squeezed his right hand, and Impermanence Tion in his hand instantly turned to ash. He waved his sleeve, dispersing Impermanence Tion's true soul. No prompt for gaining lifespan, but Impermanence Tion was no more. Guin sent a voice transmission to the master of divine exotic realm, said a sentence, and then turned to leave. The master of divine exotic realm squinted his eyes, then called out, "Wait!" Guin stopped, his back still facing him. The master of divine exotic realm looked down at him, saying, "In front of many ghost kings, I let you eliminate one of my ghost kings. The other ghost kings do not understand. Why not take my palm and let them feel your power?" As soon as he said this, the wind between heaven and earth ceased, and the waves of the sea stood still. The 8 divine exotic ghost kings looked at Guin, hardly daring to breathe. They cursed inwardly. They did not want to feel anything. They had already seen the display of power. How could they doubt it? They understood the master of divine exotic realm was unwilling, using them as an excuse. "Feel my power?" Guin's voice rang out. He slowly turned around, and in an instant his entire being grew enormously, standing between heaven and earth. Divine skill, great and minor Rui. The 8 divine exotic ghost kings looked up, dumbfounded. Guin grew to a towering height of 10,000 zhong, his head against the blood-colored sky, his feet on the ground, with dark purple demonic chi surging around him like an ocean, magnificent and unparalleled. In front of Guin, the ghost kings could not help but feel a sense of fear. A vast pressure enveloped them, rendering them motionless. The face of the master of divine exotic realm also changed dramatically. As a carefree, primordial immortal, he could more acutely sense Guin's terrifying power. Guin raised his right hand, and in the palm as large as a mountain, threads of rainbow light burst forth. Origin heaven-capturing hand. As the divine skill condensed, the master of divine exotic realm and the ghost kings felt as if the sky were falling. "Once my palm is raised, it must fall. Master of divine exotic realm, how will you have me withdraw my palm now?" Guin's voice echoed throughout heaven and earth, his tone indifferent, as if imbued with celestial might. The master of divine exotic realm abruptly fell, crashing into the ground, causing countless cracks to spread across the barren land by the sea. He trembled all over, struggling to resist Guin's pressure. The other divine exotic ghost kings were similarly pressed to the ground, unable to stand, looking at the master of divine exotic realm in despair. The master of divine exotic realm gritted his teeth, his legs bending until he kneeled on the ground. He supported himself with both hands on the ground, speaking slowly, "Please forgive me, Senior." His voice echoed through the heavens, heard by countless divine, exotic, resentful ghosts. The ghost kings looked at him, lowering his proud head, feeling both relieved and distressed. They were strong, capable of stirring the seas, but before the mightiest of the heavens, they were still like ants. Supreme Sect, 3rd Medicine Valley. Guin stepped off the transmission array platform, humming a little tune. "Hey, why so happy?" Passing by, Yu Ying couldn't help teasing. Guin glanced at her and said, "It's all right." Yu Ying giggled. "If you were born overseas, you wouldn't be in such a good mood now." Guin replied, "There are no ifs, are there? Cherish the present. Enjoy life, Junior." As he finished, he walked towards the chess area in the distance, ready to defeat Nine-Finger Divine Lord in 3 more games. Let Nine-Finger Divine Lord feel the terrifying deductive abilities of the Divine Immortal of wondrous Dharma. Yu Ying watched Guin's back, pouting slightly, reflecting that sometimes being in the lower ranks might not be a bad thing, At least you don't have to worry about world-ending catastrophes. Chapter 274, Outer Heaven. Energy movement treasure position. As dusk approached, the sun set in the west. Guin sat on the stone bench, playing with the 7 stars mirror in his hand, his face full of impatience. The 9-fingered divine lord who sat opposite him wore a gloomy expression, and the onlookers around them also frowned deeply, their eyes fixed on the chessboard. Still haven't figured it out? Admit defeat. Guin couldn't help but speak out, which sounded absurd. He had been playing chess with the 9-fingered divine lord all afternoon, and this was still the first game, with the 9-fingered divine lord having only placed 37 pieces. This guy couldn't beat him, so he wanted to wear him down? Guin saw through the 9-fingered divine lord's intention. So he placed each chess piece in the position the 9-fingered divine lord was thinking of playing, causing him great torment. Being seen through felt extremely uncomfortable. The 9-fingered divine lord couldn't understand it. He had simulated countless scenarios and thought his chess strategies were varied, yet Guin always managed to play where he intended, interrupting his thoughts. Little did he know, Guin could see through his strategies by using his ability to peer into fate. Guin could foresee what the 9-fingered divine lord would do next. Although the 9-fingered divine lord's cultivation level was high, preventing Guin from seeing too far into his future, he could easily see through the next hour. The slower the 9-fingered divine lord played, the faster Guin played, quick, precise, and ruthless, constantly attacking his psychological defenses. Hearing Guin's words, the 9-fingered divine lord cursed inwardly. If they were at sea, who would dare treat him like this? The key issue was that he indeed had a scheme, so he was both angry and embarrassed. The 9-fingered divine lord took a deep breath and made another move. Click! The sound of the chess piece landing was as loud as a thunderclap, startling the onlookers to shrink their necks. The 9-fingered divine lord was also startled and couldn't help but touch the chess piece. Guin's lips curved upward, and he used the 7 stars mirror as a fan, pretending to be profound and mysterious. The 9-fingered divine lord looked at him and suddenly felt like hitting someone. No more! No more! The 9-fingered divine lord shouted angrily. Upon hearing this, Guin immediately stood up and left. Watching his back, the 9-fingered divine lord opened his mouth but only felt a heavy weight on his chest. Guin decided to take a walk and personally see every inch of the 3rd Medicine Valley. He wanted to use his perception as the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma to feel the place he had lived in for so many years. Just as he hadn't walked far, Yang Jin came up to him and told Guin that he didn't know why, but he suddenly felt enlightened and relieved today. Guin smiled and comforted him, saying it was because his cultivation had shown results. Receiving praise from his master, Yang Jin was instantly invigorated and left happily, prepared to spar with Li Lingtian. He knew Li Lingtian had always wanted to spar with him. As soon as Yang Jin left, an Xian came and said the white spirit rat was missing again. Guin began to comfort her. After sending an Xian away, Tang Yu came. There were quite a few trivial matters today, unlike usual. Guin did not feel irritated, but rather found it amusing. What about being the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma? He still cared about these low-level old friends around him and wanted to maintain his life. The path to immortality was long, and the 9 heavens of immortal path, the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma, was merely the 6th layer heaven. What kind of realm lay beyond the 9 heavens? He was very much looking forward to it and was full of fighting spirit. An hour later, night fell, and Guin leisurely walked back to the pavilion. From afar, he saw a graceful figure standing under the pavilion. It was Ji Xiaoyu. Guin saw that Ji Xiaoyu was holding an object in her hand. He did not mind, as he had already seen through the causes and effects of that treasure. The blood prison great saint lying on the ground saw Guin, and his ox-like eyes lit up. He felt that his master had changed a bit again. Could it be that his master had become stronger again? This was definitely a good thing for him. The stronger the master, the greater his face, and he could also gain more benefits. Guan came to Ji Xiaoyu and asked with a smile, "Isn't this your time for cultivation at night? Why are you waiting here?" Ji Xiaoyu's eyes fell on Gu An's forehead, where a golden pattern faintly glowed under the night sky. She couldn't help but raise her hand and touch her own forehead. There was a red pattern on her forehead, finer than Gu An's Dao pattern. She smiled and said softly, "Nothing, just came out to look at the moonlight." The item she was holding in her other hand disappeared. Guan turned around and stood shoulder to shoulder with her, looking at the bright moon in the night sky. He smiled and said, "Xiaoyu, what do you think the scene beyond the sky is like?" Ji Xiaoyu, hearing this, looked up at the night sky and replied, "Perhaps there are many other worlds. I have heard the elders of my clan say that every star in the sky is a world. The Tao is simple and all things follow the same principles. Life on Earth is as tiny as dust, and the heavens and earth in the Tao are as small as stars." Guan couldn't help but turn his head to look at her, surprised she could speak such profound words. Unknowingly, this girl had already grown so tall. If one cultivates to immortality, they can eventually fly beyond the sky. Ji Xiaoyu finished speaking and looked at Guan. Guan met her gaze and found that her eyes were still very beautiful. The two of them started chatting about the world beyond the sky, imagining various scenarios. They spoke slowly, feeling like a gently flowing stream. Half an hour later, Guan bid farewell to her and went to his room on the second floor. Sitting at the desk, Guan looked at the starry sky outside the window and murmured, "Cultivating to immortality and flying beyond the sky. Why not go and see the world beyond tonight?" When he reached the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, he went to Immortal Seeking Island. Now, having reached the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma, he could once again explore a broader world. Gu's lips curved upward, and his immortal soul of wondrous Dharma directly jumped out of his body, out of this world. In an instant, he was in the starry sky, overlooking the great heavenly spirit land below. Guan suppressed his aura to the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, and the seven-colored glow belonging to the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma was concealed into his primordial spirit. From the cosmos, the great heavenly spirit land appeared as a vast continent, covered in a layer of golden light, with 7 suns beyond the gold, floating in the sky and operating in some ever-changing and mystical pattern. The mysterious beings within the 7 suns still existed. Observing them from the cosmos, one could sense their immense aura even more. They were all carefree, primordial immortals. In this sense, they seemed more like the guardians of the great heavenly spirit land. Guan turned around and headed deeper into the cosmos. The stars in the cosmos were indeed worlds. Some were planets, while others were continents. Not all worlds contained life, and some worlds were inhabited only by wandering spirits. These worlds were also covered in a layer of golden light, isolating beings below the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. Gu's flying speed was swift, but he stayed within the speed range of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. The cosmos was vast. Even at the speed of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, it would be difficult to encounter other heaven and earth flying immortal beings in a short time, let alone stronger existences. However, during his flight, Guan sensed several unusual auras from various directions, far away. The outer heavens also held dangers. Eventually, Guan locked his divine sense onto a heaven and earth flying immortal and quickly flew towards him. Besides the worlds constrained by mysterious forces, there were also some meteorites of various sizes roaming aimlessly in the cosmos. On one of these meteorites, which was as large as a continent, hit a heaven and earth flying immortal. It was a cultivator of the human race. This person was meditating in front of a mountain wall, his Taoist robe as white as feathers, and his face handsome, looking no more than 20 years old, with an otherworldly aura. When Guan approached him, he used his lifespan detection on him. By heaven and earth flying immortal realm, 3rd layer 124, 902/350/000/400/000 by Zia Sensku ANS Aura, and opened his eyes, his pupils a clear blue, like two crystal stones. He stood up and watched Guin approach. As Guin landed, he cupped his fists in greeting and said, "I am Ming Lang, new to the outer heavens. It must be fate to meet a Taoist friend. Would you like to be friends?" After hearing this, Bai Zia smiled and said, "So, it is your first time in the outer heavens. No wonder you are so reckless. Consider yourself lucky to have met me. My name is Bai Zia. In the future, you should be more careful. Encountering a cultivator here is more dangerous than encountering a demon." Feigning puzzlement, Guin asked, "Is the outer heavens so dangerous?" Bai Zia resumed his meditative position and rolled up his sleeve, motioning for Guin to sit down as well. Guin sat down, and Bai Zia first introduced himself before telling him about the situation in the outer heavens. Bai Zia also came from the great heavenly spirit land and was one of the peak masters of Mortal World Peak. He had been in the outer heavens for 20,000 years and was recently preparing to return to the great heavenly spirit land for a visit. According to him, within the great heavenly spirit land, the immortal path Holy Court restrained the great cultivators, but there were no rules in the outer heavens. If you died here, the cause and effect were hard to trace back to the great heavenly spirit land, so the great cultivators were even more reckless in the outer heavens. There were many worlds in the outer heavens, but the great heavenly spirit land was the main one, while the other worlds were minor. As for whether there were worlds comparable to the great heavenly spirit land, Bai Zia didn't say much. In any case, this starry sky was dominated by the great heavenly spirit land. Aside from the struggles among cultivators, the cosmos was also home to heavenly demons. These demons had existed since ancient times, were endless, and had formed their own forces. They were very hostile towards cultivators and demons, killing them on sight. Bai Zia had encountered the most terrifying heavenly demon, one that swallowed a heaven and earth flying immortal in one gulp. He only escaped because he was faster than the other heaven and earth flying immortals. To this day, thinking about it still gave him chills. If you're curious about the outer heavens, don't go too deep into the cosmos. Once you step into the silent destruction domain, it is swarming with heavenly demons and also filled with various terrifying and strange curses. Heaven and earth flying immortals who enter have a slim chance of survival. Of course, if you see no hope for a breakthrough, you may as well try your luck. Some have managed to defy fate in the silent destruction domain. It's said that the silent destruction domain was once a prosperous large world, more glorious than the great heavenly spirit land. In fact, the great heavenly spirit land is just a fragment of that world. Bai Zia spoke at length, and Guin listened carefully. He didn't feel any hostility from Bai Zia, which indicated this person was enthusiastic and kind-hearted. Of course, Guin was not afraid of a sneak attack. Bai Zia looked at Guin and asked, "Taoist friend Ming Lang, which sector you from?" The great heavenly spirit land was vast, but for heaven and earth flying immortals, wasn't very big. Guin replied, "To be honest, I am just a loose cultivator with no sect. Years ago, my sect caused trouble and was exterminated. I escaped and have been cultivating in seclusion ever since." Intrigued, Bai Zia asked, "You managed to reach the heaven and earth flying immortal realm just by cultivating on your own? Taoist friend, it seems you have great talent. Why not join our Mortal World Peak? I can make you a peak master, and you can also gain an energy movement treasure position in the Holy Court. With the Holy Court's chi fortune, perceiving the heaven and earth rules will become easier." Chapter 275, The Status of Mortal World Peak. Taoist friend, can you introduce me to the Holy Court? Guin didn't immediately accept Bai Zia's invitation, but instead asked this question. Is there an entire dynasty of immortal spirits within the great heavenly spirit land? Could it be the Holy Court? No, that dynasty, though powerful, was definitely not the most powerful in the world. in the mortal world, there was an incredibly vast continent, and even the divine sense of the carefree, primordial immortal faced resistance just by nearing its edge. That continent should be the location of the Holy Court. Baizia gave Gu a suspicious look. How could this person not know about the Holy Court? How long has he been in seclusion? Although puzzled, Baizia still introduced it as was appropriate. The Holy Court is the absolute ruler of the great heavenly spirit land and the origin of the immortal path, located in the Taoist divine continent of Great Heavenly Spirit Land. The Taoist divine continent is the largest continent within the Great Heavenly Spirit Land, and the human race also originated from the Taoist divine continent, eventually spreading throughout the entire Great Heavenly Spirit Land. The Holy Court does not interfere with affairs across the land, but ensures the safety of the great heaven and earth. If there is a world-ending catastrophe or an invasion by outer heaven demons, they would take action. They also oversee various chief fortune sects across the world. If any sect brings disaster to the world, the Holy Court would send someone to punish them. Within the Great Heavenly Spirit Land, the cultivators of the Holy Court represent immortals. Not all chief fortune sects can obtain the chief fortune treasure position of the Holy Court. The chief fortune treasure position enhances one's understanding of heaven and earth rules and extends lifespan, making it a pursuit for countless cultivators. Mortal World Peak may not be as powerful as it was in ancient times, but it has a profound foundation. Many of our ancestors are venturing in the outer heaven. If they encounter each other, they can offer mutual assistance. The Peak Master's authority is vast, not only holding office in the Holy Court, but also overseeing tens of thousands of disciples on the peak. Baizia's tone was filled with pride, as if Mortal World Peak was the most formidable chief fortune sect in the world. Guin curiously asked, how does Mortal World Peak compare to the Star Sea congregations, Seven Star Spirit Realm, Deep Sea Spirit Palace, and the Bitter Sea Buddhist sect? Baizia glared and said, how can Star Sea congregations, Seven Stars Spirit Realm, and Deep Sea Spirit Palace compare to our Mortal World Peak? The founder of Star Sea congregations once cultivated at our Mortal World Peak, and generations of their disciples remember our kindness. As for Seven Star Spirit Realm and Deep Sea Spirit Palace, they're just third-rate sections. Bitter Sea Buddhist sect is somewhat formidable, but that's only because Shangtian has been interested in Buddhism for the last 1,000,000 years. Once Shangshan's favor passes, who knows if they can even stand their ground? Shangtian is the Lord of the Holy Court, named after heaven, and whose true name cannot be spoken. Baizia's tone was filled with disdain, which fueled Gu An's imagination about Mortal World Peak. He stared at Guin and said, what do you think, Taoist friend Ming? Join Mortal World Peak. Although there is no restriction from the Holy Court in the outer heaven, background still matters. Mortal World Peak has a significant reputation. Guin hesitated and said, to be honest, I have some reservations about going to the Holy Court for the Chief Fortune Treasure position. The Chief Fortune Treasure position sounded great, but there were too many intricacies involved. The Holy Court could potentially control all Chief Fortune Treasure positions through Chief Fortune, which concerned his principles. What kind of nonsense is that? If you don't want it, I won't force you. I can leave the spot for someone else. Many people would fight tooth and nail for a Chief Fortune Treasure position. If you possess a Chief Fortune Treasure position, any sect in the world would have to respect you. As long as you don't exploit others, you'll be a welcomed guest anywhere. Not every cultivator in the heaven and earth flying immortal realm can obtain a Chief Fortune Treasure position. Baizia shook his head, laughing. Guin curiously asked, it's so rare. Why would you give it to me? We've just met, and you're inviting me. Baizia coughed and said, it's precisely because I see your exceptional talent and lack of background. Within the Great Heavenly Spirit Land, unaligned cultivators in the heaven and earth flying immortal realm are extremely rare. Mortal World Peak is powerful, but not invincible. Of course, after joining Mortal World Peak, if you misbehave, Mortal World Peak won't go easy on you. Our mortal world peak has beings that surpass those in the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. Reaching the heaven and earth flying immortal realm meant breaking through minor realms was incredibly difficult. It had been 10,000 years since he had a breakthrough in a minor realm. Guin wasn't surprised. He had long guessed that the mortal world peak hid some carefree, primordial immortals. He continued to ask, why don't you try to recruit heaven and earth flying immortals from other sects? For example, there are heaven and earth flying immortals in the Starseed congregations. Baizia shook his head and said, how could it be so easy to recruit them? Not speaking of karma and relationships, those heaven and earth flying immortals wield great power within their sects and regions, monopolizing cultivation resources. Even if you join Mortal World Peak and hold a higher status than them, obtaining the same level of resources as them is difficult. Of course, joining their sects now would make it hard to surpass them since they have been established for tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of years. Guin found it reasonable. After thinking for a moment, he said, if that's the case, I'll join Mortal World Peak. However, I can't go to Mortal World Peak right now. No problem. Mortal World Peak won't confine you. In fact, your disciples would be more than happy if you're not at the peak, allowing them to be carefree. My disciples and grandchildren probably have already forgotten me. Baizia laughed self-deprecatingly. He then took out a piece of green jade, carved with a mountain peak. This is mortal jade, symbolizing the identity of the peak master. When you encounter disciples or affiliated sects of Mortal World Peak, you can show it. Of course, with your cultivation level, you can stand boldly in the mortal world. Baizia laughed. Guin accepted the mortal jade, examining it closely. He asked, aren't you afraid I'll act recklessly after receiving the jade and then escape? Baizia laughed. If you misbehave, the Holy Court will deal with you. As long as it's investigated that you didn't stay at Mortal World Peak, the Holy Court won't blame Mortal World Peak. In fact, when you show the mortal jade, you also add strength to Mortal World Peak, making the world known Mortal World Peak has another heaven and earth flying immortal. This made Guin more cautious of the Holy Court. No wonder the seven-star spirit realm didn't openly harm the continent's beings. They were afraid of the Holy Court. At that time, the Starseed congregations also sent many disciples to gather evidence against the seven-star spirit realm, seemingly to accuse them. The Holy Court protected the beings of the world, but not the sections. The world was vast, and the Holy Court couldn't care for every being, so there would always be places where beings suffered. Guin continued to inquire about the power dynamics of Mortal World Peak, and Baizia didn't hold back, informing him of the allies and affiliated sects of Mortal World Peak, as well as their enemies. Overall, Mortal World Peak had more allies than enemies, which was why it could stand strong in the mortal world. As they continued talking, the conversation shifted to the outer heaven. Guin intentionally hinted at his desire to explore the outer heaven to prevent Baizia from investigating him in the mortal world. After chatting for a long time, Guin finally took his leave. He didn't head towards the great heavenly spirit land, but instead flew into the depths of the universe. Baizia watched Guin's departure direction, deep in thought. He mentioned the Star Sea congregations, Seven Stars Spirit Realm, and Deep Sea Spirit Palace. These three forces are adjacent to each other. Could he come from that region? I need to check it out. How could such a place produce a heaven and earth flying immortal without a sect background? Strange, strange. After parting ways with Baizia, Guin only pretended to head towards the silent destruction domain. Once he escaped the divine sense range of the heaven and earth flying immortal, he used the limitless freedom step to return to the mortal world. Guin's soul re-entered his body, and he stretched with a yawn. It was still not yet dawn. He could sense Ji Xiaoyu's energy absorption aura downstairs. The outer heaven is vast, but the mortal world gives me more peace. Guin smiled as he thought this. He had no need for adventures. He would not wander the silent destruction domain, battling with heavenly demons. One step at a time. With the annual lifespan income, he couldn't imagine how powerful he would be in 10,000 years. 10,000 years was not long for a heaven and earth flying immortal, let alone for a divine immortal of wondrous dharma. Guin picked up a travelogue and started reading. The moon set and the sun rose. Another morning dawned over the Medicine Valley. Guin got up to organize his clothes, then went downstairs to lead the disciples in their exercises. Nearly 1,000 people exercising together was quite a sight. Ji Xiaoyu walked out of the house. She didn't join the exercises, merely watching the disciples practice. It had become her habit. After the exercises, Li Lingtian ran over excitedly and said, "Sister Yu, I recently learned a spell that's quite powerful. Do you want to see it?" Ji Xiaoyu didn't even look at him. Her eyes fixed on Gu, and Li Lingtian noticed her gaze and felt a pang of jealousy. He said softly, "Sister Yu, my senior brother Gu is quite the charmer. He has a junior sister, and the Daotian sect's holy daughter has feelings for him. Also, Senior Lu, who left earlier, wants him as her Taoist friend as well." Ji Xiaoyu slightly frowned and glanced at him, asking, "Why are you telling me this?" Li Lingtian fake coughed and said, "I was afraid you didn't know." Ji Xiaoyu responded coldly, "Do you know why you're not as good as Yang Jian?" "Why?" "Because your mind is impure. As a cultivator, you're thinking about romantic affairs. It's ridiculous and unworthy. I do have feelings for him, but I haven't thought of becoming Taoist friends. My goal is to pursue the immortal path, and so is his. That's why, despite having many romantic interests, he is no Taoist friend." Ji Xiaoyu said calmly. After speaking, she walked past Li Lingtian towards Gu, and Li Lingtian stood there, his face awkward, but he wasn't angry. Instead, he reflected on Ji Xiaoyu's words. Indeed, he was still swayed by emotions. What kind of cultivator was he? Thinking closely, Yang Jian was practically a cultivation fanatic. Besides cultivation and chores, he did nothing else. Li Lingtian rubbed his chest, still sore from sparring with Yang Jian last night. Guin didn't pay attention to the conversation between Li Lingtian and Ji Xiaoyu. After chatting briefly with Ji Xiaoyu, he rode off on the Blood Prison Great Saint, accompanied by Yang Jian. Today was another day to harvest, and so it went. A month passed quickly. On this day, Guin arrived at Heavenly Phoenix Mountain, Ninshu Cave. Tian Yaoer saw him and excitedly rushed forward, saying, "Master, there's activity in the Outer World Cave. Some immortal herbs have matured." Gu An's interest peaked, and he called for Tian Qing and Tian Bai to head to the Outer World Cave. Tian Qing and Tian Bai immediately clung to his arms, making it difficult for Tian Yaoer to get close to Guin. Chapter 276, G Number Lifespan, Wandering Immortal's Arrival. After arriving at the Outer World Cave, Guin indeed saw a 7th-order medicinal grass maturing. However, he felt it could still be left to grow, as the roots at the bottom of the plant kept growing, generating more seeds in the surrounding soil. Guin watched for a while. He didn't pick it, looking forward to it producing more seeds for better sustainable development. Having already reached the 9th layer of the mystic lost spirit immortal realm, Guin no longer needed to rush to harvest thousands or even tens of thousands of years of lifespan. His goal was 100 million years of lifespan. As long as the overall time taken was shorter, that was fine. If the high-rank medicinal herbs in the Outer World Cave reached maturity, he might be able to harvest tens of millions of years of lifespan in one go. Just thinking about it made him a little excited. I'm planning to expand this cave. Later, you can move in. If you get bored, you can also raise some demons, but they must know the rules and not damage my medicinal herbs. Guin looked at the boundless medicinal garden and smiled softly. Hearing his words, Tian Yaoer and the other 2 women were very excited and began to imagine things together. Compared to raising demons, they were more eager to go out and explore. Guin promised them that once they reached the Mahayana realm, they could go out and play, which was also for their own good. Upon hearing about the Mahayana realm, The three women's faces all fell. How long would they have to cultivate to reach that level? The world outside is dangerous. If you get caught, being bullied would be the least of your worries. You might be skinned alive, have your flesh turned into elixirs, and your bones made into ornaments. Guin shook his head, scaring the three women in just a few sentences, making them not dare to think about going out anymore. Before meeting Guin, they had all faced hardships. Tian Yaoer had been kept in captivity by the Heaven Phoenix Demon Mother, while Tianqing and Tian Bai were orphans who roamed everywhere after their parents died. During that time, their wounds had never healed. Tianqing sighed. It's better to focus on cultivation and not raise any more demons to avoid distractions. Tian Bai hugged Gu An's arm and nodded, swaying her body. Seeing this, Tian Yaoer quickly pushed her away and then took Gu An's arm herself. There's a calamity brewing outside right now. Gu's heart fluttered, but his face remained serious as he began to talk about the calamity on the ocean. The three women were quickly intrigued and listened attentively. The sea-breaking rift, divine exotic realm, divine exotic resentful ghosts, and other details made them tremble with fear. Immortal and indestructible ghosts, they didn't know how to deal with them. Master, will this calamity affect you? Should you hide in the cave? If the forces on the sea can't handle it, it will eventually spread to the continent where we are. How could there be such terrifying ghosts in the world? The three women started chattering again. After staying in the outer world cave for an hour, Guin finally returned to the Supreme Sect. He went to the Third Medicine Valley, habitually going to watch Nine-Finger Divine Lord play Go, but was stopped by Yu Yingying on the way. Why do you smell so fragrant? And it's not just one type. You didn't visit a brothel, did you? Yu Yingying looked at him, perplexed. Gu An's mouth twitched. He said irritably, "Nonsense. Can't you talk more decently? Fine. Did you go to the Pleasant Fragrance Pavilion? That will be cleaner than you." Yu Yingying wasn't angry at his retort and instead smiled. Indeed, no man is any good. Guin couldn't be bothered with her and walked past her. Wait, the Starseed congregations are giving the Supreme Sect 1,000 cultivation spots for 5 years. If you want to go, I can help you get one. Yu Yingying caught up and said. Guin didn't turn his head. With my relationship with the sect leader, do I need your help? Yu Yingying responded. The Supreme Sect will surely choose the 1,000 most talented disciples. Even if you go, considering your cultivation level, you'll only feel pressured. If I put in a word for you, you'll have a better experience and greater gains. You might even go into closed-door cultivation upon returning and break through to the nascent soul realm. Guin stopped and looked at her. This girl only had a foundation establishment cultivation level, but her tone was so grand, indicating her high status within the Starseed congregations. Guin suddenly became interested and began probing the mysterious power of cause and effect within Yu Yingying's body. He had long noticed that Yu Yingying's cultivation level was suppressed by this mysterious power of cause and effect, but he didn't want to cause trouble before, so he had been too lazy to investigate. Now, with his higher cultivation level, he could take a look. Because of this power of cause and effect, Guin couldn't directly deduce her fate. Suddenly, Guin saw a grotesque face bursting out from Yu Yingying's body, lunging at him, then dissipating into smoke. This was just an illusion, without any real destructive power. Seeing through this illusion, Guin felt puzzled. What's wrong? Why aren't you saying anything? Are you thinking about how to thank me? It's simple. Just write another journey to the west, focusing on the story after Sun Wukong becomes the victorious fighting Buddha. Stop wandering around aimlessly without any proper work, Yu Yingying said with her hands on her hips. Guin laughed. No way, this stops here. Some stories don't need to be written to the end. Leaving space for imagination makes them continually intriguing. Yu Yingying gave him a glare and asked, "Are you going or not?" "I'm not going. Thanks for your goodwill, but I'd rather spend my life peacefully in the Medicine Valley. If I go and your Star Sea holy daughter falls for me, what then?" "Pa, shameless. Our Star Sea congregations don't have any holy daughter." Being entangled by a female genius is also quite stressful, just like now. If Ying started to make a move, and Gun quickly jumped away and slipped away. This guy really didn't know what was good for him. Gun was afraid he might kill her with a single shock. Life continued quietly. After going to outer heaven once, Gun didn't go back. Having roughly understood the great heavenly spirit land, he felt no need to go again. The first snow of winter quietly arrived, and the third medicine valley gradually turned white. Gun went downstairs and stood in front of the pavilion, raising his right hand to touch the falling snow. Feeling the slight chill in his palm, Gun's mood became joyful. His gaze turned to the entrance of the valley, where a vague figure was walking through the white, snowy landscape. A wandering immortal, and at the 9th layer. It was because of this person's arrival that Gun had come downstairs. Why would a wandering immortal arrive for no apparent reason? Gun watched quietly as that person entered the valley. The person was a handsome monk draped in a cassock, holding prayer beads, advancing with his eyes closed. The falling snow formed a white cape on his shoulders. Shun Shinzi, wandering immortal realm 9th layer 4586000/999999. A lifespan of 999,999 years? Gun had never seen such an extreme lifespan before. This was definitely the highest lifespan beyond nirvana he had ever seen. 9 was the highest number. He wondered if and how Yang Jian, after their nirvana, could reach such a lifespan. Gun pondered thoughtfully, watching as Shun Shinzi walked toward the Go area in the Medicine Valley, evidently heading for Nine-Finger Divine Lord. Many disciples in the valley noticed Shun Zinzi's arrival. So not only was Gun watching him, Shun Shinzi did not draw much of his attention, and he did not even open his eyes. After arriving among the crowd, Shun Shinzi heard Nine-Finger Divine Lord's urging voice. Can you play faster? Your slow pace makes you an indecisive player. Nine-Finger Divine Lord looked impatient, with his arms crossed. Across from him, Elder Lu muttered, You were even slower than me when you played against my master. Nine-Finger Divine Lord glared and replied, I wanted to drag it out and win against your master. Do you think you can drag it out and win against me? Even if you lay in a coffin, I could leisurely sit here and wait for your next move. Does it have any meaning? Hearing this, Elder Lu's face turned green. The surrounding disciples, displeased, began to criticize Nine-Finger Divine Lord for speaking excessively. Of course, they dared to speak out because they knew Nine-Finger Divine Lord well and knew he wouldn't be genuinely angry. Unbeknownst to when Nine-Finger Divine Lord, within the Third Medicine Valley, could show his true self without pretenses, and he enjoyed this feeling. Even in the midst of verbally jousting with everyone, Nine-Finger Divine Lord glanced at Shinshinzi in the crowd. He only took a look before withdrawing his gaze. Shinshinzi opened his eyes and began observing the game. After an hour, Elder Lu conceded the match. Others took turns playing, while Shinshinzi stood by and watched. Although they were curious about him, no one questioned him further. By now, they were used to great cultivators coming to the Medicine Valley to observe Go games, all for Nine-Finger Divine Lord. Gun did not continue to watch Shinshinzi. He rode the Blood Prison Great Saint and began to patrol the Medicine Valley. After noon, Nine-Finger Divine Lord won another game. He looked at Shun Shinzi and said, Little monk, want to play a round? Shun Shinzi responded, Ba. Then I humbly seek your guidance. The disciples, seeing his exceptional aura, made way. After taking a seat, Shun Shinzi made the first move. Having observed 3 games, he already knew the rules. With a smirk, Nine-Finger Divine Lord adopted Gun's aura and played each move faster than the last. In just 30 minutes, Shun Shinzi lost. Nine-Finger Divine Lord asked proudly, How was it? How do you find this game? Shun Shinzi pondered. It truly contains profound principles. The small board encompasses myriad phenomena. black and white swallowing each other, resembles the competition of all things in heaven and earth, ever-changing. It can turn despair into hope and hide traps to kill. Very intriguing. Nine-Finger Divine Lord stood up. Let's go somewhere else to chat. We shouldn't disturb the others playing Go. Shinshinzi nodded and stood up. The disciples sighed in relief. With Nine-Finger Divine Lord gone, they could enjoy the fun of Go without his constant guidance. Nine-Finger Divine Lord wasn't only formidable at playing, but also loved to instruct them, making their game experience quite torturous. The two walked along the path in the Medicine Valley. Nine-Finger Divine Lord, gazing at the boundless sky, asked, "Little monk, why are you here? Just passing by, or directed by the Bittersea Buddhist sect?" With hands pressed together, Shun Shinzi replied, "I am commanded to go to the sea-breaking rift. Passing by here, I sense your presence, so I came to visit. I didn't expect to find other disciples of my sect in this supreme sect. Observing the chief fortune of this sect, perhaps you intend to support it?" Nine-Finger Divine Lord laughed. "Supporting them? You haven't heard of Sword Venerable Fudao?" As Shun Shinzi was about to inquire, his attention suddenly shifted to Yu Yingying, who was passing by at a distance. His brows immediately furrowed. Nine-Finger Divine Lord noticed his gaze and asked, "You saw her too? What will you do about it?" His tone was intriguing, as if eager for a spectacle. Taking a deep breath, Shun Shinzi replied, "A demon should naturally be eradicated." Chapter 277 Reincarnation of the Heavenly Demon. Shun Zinza's terror as Shun Shinzi finished speaking. His eyes sharpened, and he actually stepped towards Yu Yingying. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord quickly grabbed him, scolding, "Do you really dare to act recklessly? This girl is from the Star Sea congregations, and besides, this place belongs to Sword Venerable Fudao. You better not cause trouble." Shun Shinzi sternly said, "Exorcising demons is the duty of us disciples of the Buddhism sect. How can we neglect it out of fear of the strong?" He immediately shook off the Nine-Finger Divine Lord's hand, trying to break free. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord said in a deep voice, "There are countless demons in the world. This demon has not yet done any evil. How can you act directly? Don't forget your mission. There are greater calamities that require your intervention." He felt a headache coming on. How could this lad be even more stubborn than 10,000 years ago? Although he knew that Yu Yingying had no relation to Sword Venerable Fudao, causing trouble here would inevitably break the peace of Medicine Valley, something he did not wish to see happen. Shinshinzi frowned, his gaze fixed on Yu Yingying. Yu Yingying seemed to sense something and turned her head to look at Shinshinzi. Their gazes pierced through the endless white snow, colliding in midair. For some reason, upon seeing him, Yu Yingying inexplicably felt uncomfortable and a bit scared. She instinctively avoided Shun Zinza's gaze and ran away. After walking some distance, her panic did not subside, and she looked back instinctively, only to find Shun Shinzi still staring at her, scaring her into quickening her pace. She hurriedly walked away in a daze until she bumped into someone, waking her up. She took a closer look and found that she had bumped into Gu, and amidst the falling snow, Guin stood in his blue robe, drifting with the wind. He held a mirror in his hand, like a folding fan. The hair crown on his head reflected the light, and along with the gold pattern on his forehead, it made Yu Yingying stare in awe. For the first time, Yu Yingying felt that Guin had such an air of elegance. If there were truly immortals in this world, they would probably look like this. "What's wrong with you?" Guin asked. Of course, he knew what was going on, but he had to pretend to be oblivious. Yu Yingying snapped out of her daze, and for some reason, felt calmer in front of Guin. "Just now, a monk kept staring at me," Yu Yingying said aggrievedly. Guin laughed. "Aren't you the one who's fearless? How can you be afraid of a mere monk?" Yu Yingying glared. "I don't know why, I just felt uneasy under his gaze." "Uneasy? Did you do something guilty? Stealing his cassock?" "Huh, do you take me for a black bear spirit?" With Guin's teasing, Yu Ying completely relaxed. Guan walked toward his pavilion, followed closely by the blood prison great saint, who threw a disdainful glance at Yu Ying. Yu Ying instantly became furious and started cursing the blood prison great saint. The man and the ox began to argue, while Guan, used to it, couldn't be bothered to intervene. In the following days, Shun Xinzi stayed at the Supreme Sect, investigating the disciples' impressions of Sword Venerable Fudao. 3 days passed quickly. Shun Xinzi returned to Medicine Valley, having understood that Sword Venerable Fudao was righteous and cared for the common people, and would not prevent him from exorcising demons. Upon arriving at Medicine Valley, he encountered Yang Jian and Li Lingtian. Yang Jian was pulling Li Lingtian out, looking for a place to spar. Li Lingtian was very reluctant, but did not back down verbally. Seeing the two, Shun Zinzi's gaze was fixed. He moved to block Yang Jian. Yang Jian looked at him, his brows slightly furrowed. Even now, suppressing his cultivation level, Yang Jian couldn't hide his extraordinary presence, showing the demeanor of a prodigy. Standing beside him, Li Lingtian appeared completely overshadowed. Glaring at Shun Xinzi, Li Lingtian said disgruntledly, "Monk, what do you want?" Shun Xinzi spoke. "Ba, this poor monk sees that you both have remarkable auras and unique bones. Why not join our Bitter Sea Buddhist sect and cultivate the great Tao?" Bitter Sea Buddhist sect? Before Yang Jian could speak, Li Lingtian was already flustered. "You want us to become monks?" Impossible. He was the crown prince. How could he become a monk? Monk is just a worldly term. Becoming a Buddha is the great Tao, which is eternal. Shun Xinzi said calmly. Scratching his head, Li Lingtian thought that this guy was either crazy or genuinely capable of something. Suddenly, he didn't dare to provoke him. In Medicine Valley, he always encountered great cultivators, so he couldn't remain arrogant. Yang Jian said softly, "Thank you for your kind offer, but I already have a master, and I don't wish to take another. Farewell." He bypassed Shun Xinzi and walked out of the valley. Li Lingtian quickly followed. Shun Xinzi watched their departing figures, contemplating something. Meanwhile, in the distance, beneath a pavilion, Gu In and Ji Xiaoyu stood side by side, appreciating the snowy scenery. Ji Xiaoyu noticed Shun Xinzi and said, "That monk seems unusual. I wonder if he will cause trouble for Yang Jian." Although she had never sparred with Yang Jian, she felt he was extraordinary. Curious about how Gu In had made Yang Jian so loyal, she learned that Yang Jian had been nurtured by Gu An's elixir, gradually unlocking his talent, which made her admire Gu In even more. Perhaps Gu An's cultivation talent was ordinary, but his character deeply impressed her. Gu In turned back. He is a high monk. How could he trouble Jin'er? If anything, he would bring blessings, wouldn't he? Ji Xiaoyu glanced at him. Seeing the genuine smile on his face, she believed his words. They continued chatting casually. Eventually, Shun Xinzi still found Yu Ying. At first, she was very afraid of him, but he only asked her about some matters, which gradually made her lower her guard. Although Gu An's gaze wasn't fixed on Shun Xinzi, his attention was always on him. If Yu Ying were outside and got caught by Shun Xinzi, he would intervene, but not in Medicine Valley. Gu In thought Shun Xinzi wouldn't harm Yu Ying, but he was wrong. Late at night, Yu Ying was meditating and cultivating in her room. The candlelight reflected her shadow on the wall, swaying slightly. Suddenly sensing something, she opened her eyes to see a figure entering her sight, startling her so much she instinctively crawled backward, hitting the wall. "What do you want?" Yu Ying asked nervously, her voice loud, clearly trying to alert others. Standing by the bed, Shun Xinzi looked down at Yu Ying with a serious expression. "Don't waste your efforts. I have set up a barrier. No one can hear your cries, nor can you escape." Shun Zinzi's gaze was oppressive, and his tone was cold. Yu Ying gritted her teeth and asked, "Who are you? What grudge do you have with me?" Ba, we have no personal grudge. This poor monk can let you die knowing the reason. You are the reincarnation of a heavenly demon. Once your cultivation reaches the primordial spirit stage, you will regain memories of your past life and bring calamity to the world. Shun Shinzi replied. Upon hearing this, Yu Yingying's expression changed dramatically, but instead of arguing, she sat dazedly on the bed, looking desolate. I see, she murmured, a bitter smile appearing on her face. She closed her eyes, preparing to accept her fate. Shinzi closed his eyes and raised his right hand, ready to end Yu Yingying's life. Thud! Suddenly, a hand pressed on Shun Zinz's shoulder, causing his eyes to snap open, his Buddha heart trembling. This indescribable feeling made him inexplicably fearful. Having faced countless formidable demons, even in defeat, he had never felt this way. He was shocked to find himself unable to move, his mana suppressed and inactive. He immediately thought of someone. Sword Venerable Fudao. Legend had it that in a book, it was written that Sword Venerable Fudao would lightly tap the shoulder before killing someone. He had thought it was just a tale, but it turned out to be true. Outsiders are not permitted to kill within the Supreme Sect. Gu An's voice reached Shun Zinz's ears, hoarse and indifferent, carrying an undeniable authority. Next, Shun Shinzi felt the hand on his shoulder disappear, an immense relief flooding over him. He exhaled deeply, his forehead drenched in cold sweat, unable to remain calm. In that brief moment, he truly thought he would die. Looking again at Yu Yingying, his eyes were complex. Amit Ba, Shun Zinz's voice rang out, followed by the sound of the door opening. Yu Yingying opened her eyes to see that Shun Shinzi had vanished. Thinking about his earlier tone, it seemed he was sighing. However, Yu Yingying felt no relief from the brush with death. Instead, she remained despondent. The reincarnation of a heavenly demon. Having grown up in the Starseed congregations, she had heard tales of the heavenly demon. No wonder her father was reluctant to teach her cultivation. When he heard she was coming to the Supreme Sect, he was pleased, fearing she might implicate him. That night, Yu Yingying leaned against the wall, lost in thought. The next morning, she tidied herself up before leaving the house. Seeing the disciples of Medicine Valley exercising, their faces brimming with smiles, she felt as though she were in a different world, suddenly somewhat envious. These people might not have natural talent or prominent origins, but at least they could look forward to their future. And what about her? Born unlucky, unloved by her father, shunned by her mother, everyone saw her as a curse. She spotted Shinzi. He stood under a tree, watching the disciples exercise, deep in thought. He didn't turn his head, despite her gaze. Does he pity me, or is he afraid of dirtying his hands? Yu Yingying stood there, stunned. After the morning exercises ended and the disciples dispersed, she still stood at the entrance. Time passed unknowingly. Guan rode the blood prison great saint past her yard and shouted, "Ms. Yu, what are you daydreaming about? If you have nothing to do, go shovel the snow with them. Since you live in my Medicine Valley, you should at least help out, right?" Yu Yingying snapped out of it, and seeing Gu An's slightly displeased face, she instinctively nodded in agreement. Guan showed a satisfied expression, tossed her a look that said good thinking, and continued on his way with the blood prison great saint. At that moment, Yu Yingying came to her senses, recalling Gu An's arrogant expression. She couldn't help but stomp her feet, muttering, "Making me do the chores." Although she cursed, her heart wasn't angry. She suddenly thought, there's no place for her in the world, but this Medicine Valley accepted her. She's not that miserable after all. The worst-case scenario, she would never cultivate, live a few hundred years like Guan, and then die. As for where she'd go in the next life, she didn't care anymore. In the next life, she wouldn't be her. Chapter 278 Lord of All Realms. Head of Immortals, Shun Shinzi, stood under the tree, also lost in thought. Unlike Yu Yingying, who had already come to terms with things, he was still puzzled. He was shocked by Sword Venerable Fudeo's power and doubted his own thoughts. Based on his investigation these past few days, Sword Venerable Fu Dao absolutely was a great power who cared for the common people, capable of correcting his sex behavior and reaching out to save the world. With Sword Venerable Fu Dao's cultivation level, he surely could see through Yu Yingying's karmic ties. Did he really not want anyone causing slaughter in the Supreme Sect? Or did he think Yu Yingying shouldn't be killed? Shun Zinz's mind was in turmoil until Nine-Finger Divine Lord came to Medicine Valley to play Go, and only then was he awakened by him. Why are you in such a state? Did you encounter Sword Venerable Fu Dao? Nine-Finger Divine Lord asked with a smile, standing before Shinshinzi. Shinshinzi closed his eyes and uttered a ba. The smile faded from Nine-Finger Divine Lord's face. He frowned, his expression serious, and said in a deep voice, "You really dare to act? Are you courting death? I've heard that divine, strange, ghost king, heaven unpredictable, was directly crushed by Sword Venerable Fu Dao, and it is said that heaven unpredictable had already reached the pinnacle of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm." Shinshinzi still kept his eyes closed, seemingly indifferent. Nine-Finger Divine Lord noticed his left hand trembling within his sleeve. This kid wasn't scared half to death, was he? Nine-Finger Divine Lord thought to himself, and suddenly found it amusing. It was rare to see him this frightened. Come, let's play Go. There is wisdom in black and white that can help you understand. Nine-Finger Divine Lord pulled Shinshinzi along, chattering as they walked. I have to say, Guin does have a certain divine nature. To create such a profound game of Go, either he has an extraordinary master behind him, or he was guided in his dreams by an immortal. Shinshinzi, in a daze, did not really listen. However, in the following days, through playing Go, the anxiety and confusion in his mind began to dissipate, and he also came to understand Nine-Finger Divine Lord's words. This game of Go was indeed extraordinary. The cold winter finally passed, and the spring festival of the Supreme Sect came around once more. It was worth mentioning that, through the promotion of Li Xiandao, people across the world had begun to celebrate the Spring Festival. In the Third Medicine Valley, Li Lingtian stood beside Yang Jian, his hands on his hips, as he looked at Shinshinzi under the distant tree, frowning. Why hasn't that monk left yet? Is he planning to stay here? Yang Jian was making lanterns beside him and replied nonchalantly, "He can stay if he wants. It's none of your business. My master hasn't chased you away either." Li Lingtian glared and said, "I'm different. I am your master's junior brother, and your master has the best relationship with my brother, the emperor." Yang Jian suddenly looked at him and asked, "By the way, have you heard from your emperor brother? He is cultivating among the Star Sea congregations and should be acquainted with Hao, right? No contact yet, but he does have a good relationship with Hao. Both are already legendary geniuses in the Supreme Sect. Speaking of which, I haven't seen them in person. Perhaps my emperor brother doesn't even know of my existence." Li Lingtian replied. When he mentioned Leah, a trace of envy entered his tone. "You could follow in your emperor brother's footsteps. I've heard that the Taitsong dynasty and the Star Sea congregations have also established a friendly cooperation. Your father, the emperor, must have some way. Forget it. It's better to cultivate with you. To be honest, I think you're the strongest genius in the world. My emperor brother and how are nothing compared to you." Li Lingtian looked at Yang Jian seriously and said, expressing his genuine thoughts. In this lifetime, he admired Yang Jian the most. Not only was his talent unparalleled, but he also had the patience to cultivate diligently, avoiding the pursuit of empty fame. There's no way I'm the strongest, and I also have a goal to pursue. Yang Jian shook his head and laughed. A goal to pursue? Li Lingtian was immediately intrigued and began to ask, but unfortunately, Yang Jian would not say. Elsewhere, Guin approached Shinshinzi. At this moment, Shinshinzi was sitting on the ground, engrossed in Journey to the West. "Taoist friend, the festival is approaching. Would you like to join us?" Guin asked with a smile. Shinshinzi came to his senses, quickly got up, and saluted Guin, saying, Umitba, thank you for the invitation. As a humble monk, I dare not refuse. What can I do to help? Guin waved his hand with a smile. You are a guest. There's no need for you to do anything. Of course, if you are in the mood and have time to guide the disciples in the valley, I would be grateful. Shinzi couldn't help but ask out of curiosity, Benefactor, what do you wish to learn? Not for me, but for the disciples in the valley. Doesn't the benefactor seek the Mahayana Buddhist teachings and the immortal destiny? Me? Forget it. My current life is pretty good. I don't want to go out fighting and killing. I have a senior brother named Liya, who hold an immortal path supreme treasure. He's incredibly powerful, but unfortunately, only I know the hardships he faces behind the glory. I'm timid by nature and dare not kill people, so it's best for me to stay in Medicine Valley. Guin laughed freely, causing Shun Shinzi to look at him with admiration. They chatted for a while before Guin took his leave. Shun Shinzi watched his departing figure, filled with deep emotions. This Medicine Valley, though small, was truly fascinating. There were great cultivators who had achieved unparalleled heights, extraordinarily talented juniors, ill-fated disaster stars, and a valley master who had seen through life. If he were to cultivate Buddhist teachings here, it might bring him greater enlightenment. However, unfortunately, he still had to head to the sea-breaking rift. If he could survive and return, he could cultivate here for hundreds of years. Shinzi silently thought, no longer caring about eliminating Yuanying. With a great power like Sword Venerable Fudao watching over her, she shouldn't cause any trouble. In the palace, Enhao stood up and saluted his master, Sage Fuchin. Sage Fuchin looked at Enhao with a sigh. Howard, I didn't expect you to have such a formidable master. As your teacher, I am basking in your glory. He had already learned about the incident where Heaven Unpredictable attacked the Star Sea congregations, and he was shocked. He didn't expect Enhao to have such a significant background. Master, you have taught me to cultivate and taken care of me. I will always remember your kindness. Enhao replied seriously. Ever since Sword Venerable Fudao intervened, Enhao's status within the Star Sea congregations had completely changed. Often, great cultivators visited him, showing care and concern, and even some noble families sought to introduce female disciples to him as Taoist friends, though he politely declined. Enhao already had someone in his heart, but to him, nothing compared to the immortal cultivation path, so he had severed that relationship. His master saved him from the jaws of a monster, not to let him indulge in love. He must reach the pinnacle of the immortal path and not let his master down. Sage Fuchin smiled with satisfaction and then began to talk about the sea-breaking rift. In the sea-breaking rift, more divine exotic resentful ghosts were appearing, and the 9 divine exotic ghost kings were gathering. The great sects were preparing to launch a joint attack on the divine exotic realm, and he had returned for this reason. As he listened to his master describe the various bizarre and wonderful sights within the divine exotic realm, and how became interested, wanting to explore it himself. However, he ultimately suppressed the urge, knowing that time was precious and he had to devote all his time to cultivation to become capable as soon as possible. If this great battle goes smoothly, the world-destroying sea tide will not erupt, which is an immense achievement. Sage Fuchin said with burning eyes. Achievement? But what use was that? Sage Fuchin began to introduce the Holy Court, which broadened Enhao's horizons, as he learned there was a ruling power in the mortal world. The land of 10,000 immortals, it sounded imposing. When Sage Fuchin spoke of the Lord of the Holy Court, Shantian, Enhao fell into endless imagination. The Lord of the Holy Court, ruling the mortal world, how powerful must that be? Wouldn't that be akin to the Heavenly Emperor in the Investiture of the Gods, or the Jade Emperor in Journey to the West? Enhao's name also had Hao in it. Could he not become the Lord of all realms, the head of immortals, one day? A flame of unparalleled ambition ignited in Enhao's heart. Since he was on the path of immortal cultivation, how could he not strive for the supreme throne? Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 12 years had passed. In the summer, in a city, Guin walked on the street in a green robe, accompanied by a woman clad in white, with a hat and veil concealing her face. This woman was Ji Xiaoyu. Why come to this city? Ji Xiaoyu curiously asked. At the beginning of the year, she had told Gu and she wanted to go out and see the mortal world and comprehend the Tao, hoping Guin could accompany her. Initially, Guin did not agree, but she kept bringing it up, and he eventually gave in. One of my junior brothers lives in this city. Guin answered, then recounted his acquaintance with Xiaochuan. Ji Xiaoyu listened attentively, her heart touched. Indeed, not everyone had her extraordinary talent. Most people's spirit root qualifications were average, just like those in the Third Medicine Valley. Xiaochuan's decision to give up the immortal path deeply moved her. Of course, she only admired Xiaochuan's determination. She would never give up on immortal cultivation. They chatted as they walked. They entered an inn and went to a window seat on the second floor. Ji Xiaoyu asked, if Xiaochuan passes away first, will you be sad? Guin was already a core formation realm cultivator, certain to outlive Xiaochuan. Guin smiled. If he leaves without regret, I won't be sad. Even if he passes, I will always hold a place for him in my heart. Ji Xiaoyu nodded. Guin teased. If I pass away, will you be sad? Ji Xiaoyu didn't console him, but thought through the question seriously and replied, I will feel sad, but it won't affect my emotions. I too will eventually reach the end. We will both enter reincarnation. It's just a matter of who goes first. You have a clear perspective, not disappointing my teachings over the years. What have you taught me? My words, my actions, they influence you. True. Ji Xiaoyu nodded in agreement, making Guin smile more broadly. This girl was so easily tricked. She was even more fun than in their past lives. Just as Guin was about to speak, a sound of breaking through the air came from the sky. Make way! Make way! A rude voice echoed above the city, drawing Guin and Ji Xiaoyu's attention. They turned to see a sea dragon flying low, stirring up debris along its path. On the sea dragon's head stood a young boy. Upon hearing Shinzin's name, Yang Jian looked towards Gu and conveyed through psychic transmission. Yes, that's the monk who visited Medicine Valley before. Yang Jian had sensed that Shinzi was extraordinary, but he did not expect the monk to be so well known. Soon, Hu Shaojin arrived and greeted them as usual, leading them to purchase medicinal herbs. Predecessor, I heard that Tang Hai and others encountered danger in the sea-breaking rift, and their fate is unclear, Hu Shaojian said cautiously. Guin replied calmly, everyone has their own destiny. Different choices lead to different fates. As immortal cultivators, they would have been prepared. Hu Shaojian nodded, contemplating the might of the divine exotic ghost king. Currently, aside from Sword Venerable Fu Dao, no second individual or demon has been able to suppress a divine exotic ghost king alone. The longer the disaster caused by the sea-breaking rift lasts, the more it confirms the strength of Sword Venerable Fu Dao. Although Sword Venerable Fu Dao has not joined in the battle within the sea-breaking rift, many believe that the reduction in the number of divine exotic resentful ghosts at sea and the retreat of divine exotic ghost kings back into the rift is related to Sword Venerable Fu Dao. Guin remained silent while Yang Jian engaged in brisk conversation with Hu Shaojian. By the way, there's a popular book at sea called Journey to the West. Have you read it? Hu Shaojian suddenly recalled and asked. Yang Jian nodded. I have. What about it? He was moved, feeling proud that his master was not only profound in cultivation, but also preeminent in talent, for his book to spread so far. Guin was also surprised as he secretly calculated. It turned out that the Starseed congregations played a significant role, and another person was also helping to promote Journey to the West, who was none other than Shinzi. Interesting. Guin wasn't afraid of trouble. Now, He had the power to protect himself. Of course, it would be better if no one disturbed him. As Hu Shaojian brought up Journey to the West, he began to enthusiastically explain that the book had spread throughout the seas, praised by many sects. Besides those cultivators who were always in seclusion, most of those active at sea had read it. Some felt that the immortal divine world depicted in the book was fascinating, others thought the book reflected reality, and some even considered it a history book. Investiture of the Gods wasn't as popular as Journey to the West, but some, like Hu Shaojian, would read Investiture of the Gods after learning about Journey to the West. Through Journey to the West, Hu Shaojian also mentioned the great sects and cultivators of the seas, leaving Yang Jian in awe. How vast was this world, really? 2 ancient hours later, the master and disciple duo returned to the supreme sect. Walking through the woods, Yang Jian became more talkative. Master, between Impermanence Tian and the divine exotic Ghost King, who is stronger? Yang Jian curiously asked. He had heard from Hu Shaojian about Sword Venerable Fu Dao appearing within the Star Sea congregations to confront a divine exotic Ghost King, so he was intrigued. Hu Shaojian didn't know the details due to his lower status. He did not know the name of that divine exotic Ghost King, nor why Sword Venerable Fu Dao acted, but he was aware of the event. Although Yang Jian was no longer disturbed by Impermanence Tian, he still felt an inherent pressure, thinking that he would inevitably face him one day. Gu casually replied, As your master, I am also unclear. When you face him in the future, you will know. I hope he comes later rather than sooner. With his level of cultivation, what he calls soon might be in hundreds or thousands of years, so don't worry too much. Right, I will definitely not slack off. Yang Jian was full of fighting spirit, and he actually had another question he wanted to ask. That was what realm had his master reached? His master claimed to be a loose immortal, but from what Hu Shaojian said, Sword Venerable Fu Dao obviously seemed much stronger than a loose immortal. He also wanted to ask about the cultivation realm of that fellow senior brother, but he dared not ask. If the master did not say it, there must be a reason. Inside the palace, and how slowly opened his eyes, exhaling a long breath of foul air. A figure suddenly appeared beside the pool, none other than Qi Jiuxiao. Qi Jiuxiao looked at Hao and marveled. Void crossing realm, 9 layers. Impressive, young man. To have such cultivation at just over 100 years old is indeed terrifying. Although my sect has invested a lot in you, you have absorbed it all so quickly, truly proving your talent is unmatched in the world. And Hao looked at him and said, Above the void-crossing realm are the unification and mystic heart. To reach the Mayana realm by 500 would not be considered quick. Qi Jiuxiao rolled his eyes and said, With your current pace, reaching the Mayana realm by 500 would be a breeze. I even suspect that you could achieve nirvana before 500. Your innate talent is unimaginable. As he said this, his tone also revealed a hint of envy. And Hao shook his head. My master has taken another disciple. He says his talent is not inferior to mine, and honestly, I fear he might catch up with me. Mentioning Sword Venerable Fu Dao, Qi Jiuxiao immediately sat cross-legged, curious. Who exactly is your master, and which sect is he from? Don't tell me he's from the Supreme Sect. With such cultivation, if he's not from the Holy Court, he must be from one of the mortal world's leading Qi fortune sects. I truly don't know, and Hao admitted helplessly. Even if he did know, he wouldn't reveal it. Qi Jiuxiao glanced at him and then pulled out several books from within his robes, offering, Take a look at Journey to the West. It's also from the Supreme Sect. This book has become wildly popular at sea, and it's even made me consider another trip to the Supreme Sect. Journey to the West? And Hao looked at the book in Qi Jiuxiao's hands. He had already heard about the book, written by Pan and of the Supreme Sect. He knew who Pan was. His junior sister was even under Pan A&S mentorship. And Hao couldn't help but recall his first encounter with Gu, and when they witnessed LV Baitian returning to peak form, exhibiting a formidable cultivation level. But Gu-An's cultivation and talents seemed so ordinary, and such an ordinary person had managed to spread his fame all the way to the seas. Truly remarkable. What exactly is the Bitter Sea Buddha sect scheming? He lifted his right hand and began healing Shinshinzi with his own divine power. Meanwhile, back in Medicine Valley, Guin withdrew his attention. The master of divine exotic realm was sensible. If he dared to cause trouble, risk or not, Guin would have had to intervene. But the thought of Zhang Buku becoming a divine, exotic, resentful ghost made Guin sigh. He couldn't constantly watch over Zhang Buku. The last time he detected Zhang Buku in the divine exotic realm, Zhang Buku had already transformed into a resentful ghost, fortunately retaining a sliver of will. If the master of divine exotic realm were to be obliterated, then all the divine, exotic, resentful ghosts would vanish as well. That meant Zhang Buku was now tied to the fate of the realm master. Chapter 281. The Enlightened Master. Guin 2 years had passed since Liya and Zhang Buku had met. In those 2 years, the seas continued to surge with activity. Countless cultivators and demons rushed into the sea-breaking rift. Such strife never ceased. Some found their fateful breakthroughs while others fell with regret. The Supreme Sect had been peaceful, with the majority of its disciples diligently pursuing their cultivation. Days in Medicine Valley were even more serene. On this day, Guin arrived early in Mystic Valley, waiting for someone who was soon to appear. Near noontime, dressed in black, Liya descended from the sky, landing below the pavilion. This time, he didn't enter through the window, but stood beneath it, gazing at Gu-An's windowsill, silent for a long time without taking a step forward. The blood-prisoned great saint, lying on the ground, watched him with a peculiar look in its eyes. It could feel that his mood was very low, and his entire being seemed dispirited and lost. "Senior Brother Li, why have you come?" Lu Jijia hurried over, asking excitedly. Li snapped out of his trance and looked towards him, managing a strained smile. "I came to see your senior brother Gu. He's upstairs. Usually, he doesn't spend much time in Mystic Valley, but today he's been here all morning. So he was waiting for you." After all, Lu Jujia remarked with a sigh. He could obviously tell something was off with Liya, hence his words. Liya nodded at him, then ascended the stairs. Upon reaching the second floor, he pushed open the door and entered. Guin, who was seated in a chair, put down the Supreme Secret Records book he had been reading and looked at Liya, exclaiming with surprise, "Senior Brother Li, what brings you here?" Looking at Guin, Liya's eyes suddenly reddened. He closed the door behind him, then walked over to the desk, clenching his fists tightly and gritting his teeth. Guin's smile faded as he asked anxiously, "What's wrong? What happened?" Liya dared not meet Guin's gaze because Zhang Buku had once said that Guin was his only senior relative. Zhang Buku. Liya started with difficulty. What happened to him? Guin stood up abruptly. Liya took a deep breath and recounted what had happened to Zhang Buku. After listening, Guin collapsed in his chair, looking just as dispirited, deepening Liya's distress. "Wait, you said he became a divine, exotic, resentful ghost, which means he's still here, isn't he?" Guin asked urgently, as if grasping at a thought. Liya turned his head and replied, "He's still here, but becoming a divine, exotic, resentful ghost means he's no longer who he was. He's become a monster that devours living spirits, never to know freedom." Guin countered, "Did you see him do that?" Liya froze for a moment, then looked at him. Guin's expression became calm as he said, "Buku has always had a tough life, carrying the burden of half of the demon clan's bloodline, but he has managed to survive till now. Why can't he turn misfortune into safety this time?" But Liya stammered, "Senior brother, This incident isn't your fault. He chose to venture into the sea-breaking rift himself. Don't carry too much burden. Besides, I truly believe he can turn danger into safety. Junior brother Gua, Leah began. Look at you. If Buku saw you like this, he would surely laugh at you. Aren't you brothers who have gone through life and death together? Do you intend to join him in death? You must have faith in him. He will definitely be able to turn danger into safety. If you don't cultivate diligently, you might even fall behind him. After every great adversity comes great fortune. Don't underestimate him. Guin said with a smile, a look of anticipation on his face. Leah knew Guin was comforting him, but he couldn't help but think, what if Zhang Buku truly could overcome this peril? Guin invited him to sit down and inquired about his experiences over the years. Leah began to share his life in the past years, and Guin interjected with questions from time to time. The more he did so, the more ashamed Leah felt. Zhang Buku was gone. The pain in Junior Brother Gu's heart must have been no less intense than his, considering Junior Brother Gu also carried the emotional weight of Zhang Chuanxiu. And yet, Junior Brother Gu still comforted him. A divine exotic immortal spirit appeared on Li Ya's shoulder without him noticing. It looked at Gu and blinked slyly, but Leah missed this moment. The two brothers talked for a long time. Until dusk, Leah stood up. He looked at Guin and said, I've come back this time just to tell you about this. Thank you, Junior Brother Gu. I won't give up hope. It'll cultivate even harder and will save Zhang Buku sooner or later. Determination colored his face, and his eyes blazed with fighting spirit. Guin naturally encouraged him, and so Leah left. He didn't exit through the window, but walked down the stairs. Guin did not accompany him. Leah stopped in front of the blood prison Great Saint, turned to look at it, and said, Ox head, I swear I won't let anyone I care about end up in danger again. And your master, I will protect him too. With those words, he leaped into the sky and vanished into the horizon. The blood prison Great Saint rolled its eyes and muttered, crazy in the head. Who's protecting who? And why are you telling me? Am I your father? A month after Li Ya's departure, another person returned. It was the monk Shinshinzi. He made his way to the third medicine valley. He paused at the entrance to the valley, somewhat dazed by the sight of its inhabitants sweeping, watering the soil, playing Go, painting, and playfully chasing each other. Everything seemed so harmonious. Shinshinzi suggested, how about the book in your hands lend it to this monk to study? Gu An's expression changed instantly, and he closed the Supreme Secret records and said, not this one. Chapter 282, Reincarnation of the Great Fortune of Energy Movement out of respect for social interaction. Shinshinzi had refrained from using his divine sense, so he was unaware of the content of the book in Gu An's hands. Even when Guin refused him, he did not entertain any impolite thoughts. He inquired why, and Guin replied that Buddhism sect did not deem it suitable to read secular books. And then he handed Shinshinzi a copy of Righteous Path and Demon Path. Righteous Path and Demon Path told the story of how Sword Venerable Fudao inscribed the characters for Righteous Path at the Heavenly Repair platform, revealing the dark secrets of the Supreme Sect. Instead of tarnishing the Supreme Sect's reputation, the book made more people aware of the sect's pursuit of righteousness, encouraging them to actively correct their errors. Although the book was not as popular as Journey to the West or Investiture of the Gods, many within the sect still favored it, studying it repeatedly. Shinshinzi took the book, and upon seeing the title on the cover, his interest was piqued. He thanked Guin and left. After he left, Guin finally took out the Supreme Secret records and continued reading. He found it difficult to concern himself with the troubles of others' lives. When asked, he would speak his true thoughts without imposing. He had his own life to live. Why worry more than necessary? Guin liked to consider himself an observer in others' lives, acting as he pleased, but without becoming overly fixated, lest it turn into regret. After arriving at the third Medicine Valley, Shun Shinzi decided not to leave, and Guan did not turn away this 9 layers wandering Immortal Realm Great Cultivator. Today's third Medicine Valley was undoubtedly the strongest place in the Supreme Sect, even on the continent. With Shin Shinzi and Nine-Finger Divine Lord there, Guan was not concerned for the safety of Medicine Valley and was more at ease when venturing out. 5 years passed quickly. That year's summer was not as hot as previous ones. Guan descended the stairs and saw many cultivators flying across the sky. This year, the Supreme Sect was preparing to host another alchemy conference, and it promised to be lively. Guan also planned to go and enjoy the bustle. After descending the stairs, he rode off on the Blood Prison Great Saint. Just as the Blood Prison Great Saint stood up, Ji Xiaoyu caught up. Seeing this, Guan had no choice but to dismount and pat the back of the Blood Prison Great Saint, saying, "You're free to roam around today." With Ji Xiaoyu present, it wasn't appropriate for Gu and to ride him out. Both of them riding together? What would that look like? Guan valued his reputation and integrity. The Blood Prison Great Saint left with a joyful expression, and Ji Xiaoyu asked, "Why not continue to ride?"